How you doing? See your weather forecast.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Northampton County Budget Meeting, General Government. Anybody want to courtesy of the floor? Anybody have questions for it? About it? All right, then we'll move right in. General Government. We're going to go. We're going to move with General Government Program 27, graph 2023 operating budget, General Government Program 20, page 27, General Government Summary 28. Okay. We're going to move right into Council Summary 29 on page. Okay. If we have. Is there any questions or comments in a particular budget that I just discussed? So we were doing General Government, page 27, graph proposed budget 2023 operating budget on page 27, and then we're going to General Government, page 28. If anybody has any question from the public? 2 seconds.
Just one, I think you've answered this before. Steve, investment income is up 206%. Is that just the bond market?
It's the interest market when we get our funds. Banks are paying good interest right now because interest rates are much higher.
Question.
Mr. Goffredo.
Steve, can you explain the 70.9% decrease in intergovernmental revenue? I'm sure there's a reasonable explanation. It's a large number.
I believe most of that intergovernmental is the ARP money, so money that has already been spent that came in from the ARP money. I would most likely make up all, if not most of that.
Are you done, Jeff?
Yes. Yep.
Ron?
Thank you. Steve, just our taxes coming in. I know we projected, actual was 98.9, let's say 99 mil. In 2022, we budgeted 99.650. We had projected 101,426. And now you're saying at 24, it'll be closer to what we projected, 101,25,7. And just briefly, you're basing that on?
So it has to do with if you look on the revenue pages, so I'll have you flip back in the book to the white book now.
Okay.
Sorry.
You're in the white book.
Yes. If you flip back to the white book, the pertinent pages where it says revenue analysis, page 7, part of that there, if you look, you'll see all of the revenue broken down.
Right.
But there's also a section in here with regard to the taxes and taxes as they're collected, like back taxes and stuff like that.
All right.
So I will say we had a very good year with regard to sales and stuff like that.
Okay.
That allows us to be optimistic that we will have a lower receivables going into next year.
All right. So other than the federal dollars, I mean, everything looked kind of stable to me. It seemed like. I was just curious about tax revenue, only because I know with all the development, I was curious, how much of a bump that is or is contributing to our tax base.
$1.5 million. And that's not all, you know, that's not all warehouses per se.
Right.
Some of that is permits and stuff like that, but a good majority of it is the new warehouses you see going online.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. That's all I asked.
Steve, while we're on that page 7 and we're looking at the overall scope of fees, fines, charges, and miscellaneous, your actual 2022 is at 39 million. You budgeted in 2023 around the same, but we came up about 10% short. What's the reasoning for that? Is it just-
So a lot of the fees, fines, and charges that we have are based on usage. So one of the things I think where we were a little bit short this year is we anticipated more in the housing market, you know, more fees and things coming in from the transfer of property. As you may know, with the interest rates going up, the market has sort of slowed artificially, or not artificially, purposefully, because you can't afford to borrow money now. That being the case, it sort of slowed the housing market. Now, still houses, you know, are bought and sold every month in the county, but it's not a boom like we saw in the beginning of the year that we thought would continue.
Which leads me to my next question. What's the rationale for predicting 40 million in 2024 as opposed to something more in line with what we saw in 2023?
So the additional $900, or the additional, I'm sorry, the additional $900,000 comes from other costs that we anticipate. I think you'll hear from court services, you know, with regard to other fees that might come in, like e-filing fees and things like that. So there are going to be some other things coming online that I think will generate more fees and mostly usage fees in the
Would
budget.
it be more into the tune of 4 million, as we only received 36 million in 2023, as opposed to what we projected?
I think you'll be surprised with the way the fees come up this year. You know, the underpinnings of the real estate market hurt us, but I do think there's going to be other money coming in. There's going to be other usage. You know, at the end of the year this year, like I said, we had some very successful sales. So there will be a whole bunch of transfer taxes, and we will be getting fees and commissions from those sales as well. So I think I know you see it's lower than, it's like around 4 million, that's the projected, but I think our projected for 2023 is going to be a bit higher when all is said and done. I think the projections go through what, Brandon? What was, well, we projected the end of the year, but we did the projections for what, like what date for this version of the budget?
Oh, like, the numbers were finalized at the end of August.
Yeah, the end of August. So we had September, October, November, or September and October that happened in between.
If you want to refer to him, he's going to need to speak, so folks, come up to the mic so folks can.
That's fine.
Have a
Yeah.
look at it, okay. How much revenue are we actually getting from the warehouses?
I can get you that number. I don't know if we have it specifically broken down as a warehouse, because the properties are, you know, commercial properties. Now, commercial properties could be everything from a business on Main Street in Nazareth to a warehouse. So I don't know what our codes are in the IFAS system. I'd have to pull those out and see, but I can try to derive those numbers for you.
Okay, that'd be nice. And what's our reserve?
What do you mean reserve?
Do we have any money in reserve that in case we need to lean on something? Budgetary reserves?
I think there's a financial stabilization part after the council presentation.
Okay.
That we'll go into a little bit.
All right.
But
Anybody
yes,
else?
we have reserves.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, let's go to council summary on page 29. Does anybody have any questions or comments about that?
Our investment income went up quite a bit.
That was a good,
Recurring theme.
No questions from council? Nobody from the floor? And you can refer to council itself, the budget there. That is 7 in the blue book, if you have any questions, and 30 in the white book. Questions or comments?
Just a comment, and I don't know, Steve might take this, or Charles, probably Steve. I noticed, when I was ripping through these things and looking, I like to see if there's a common theme, and then it's not necessary to get into every time. But I've noticed that when we go through, if you look at the salary, the overall salary increases and the overall fringe increases, everywhere it seems to come out to somewhere around 14, 15% added together. And that seems to be consistent across the board. Am I?
Yes, just to summarize all that for you.
Yeah.
The personnel pages are on 15 and 16. So when you get to those departments, when you ask the question, how many full and part-time, it's right there on page 15 and 16 for you. Page 17 has all the upgrades listed that
Right.
we're asking for in this budget, and we can go over them when we get to each department. They're pretty simple. And then on page 14, you'll see healthcare and dental is up $4.6 million. That plus the 3.5% given to the career service in wages makes up everything else. Expenses within the departments are rather stable in all departments. Most all departments. We'll talk about where there are changes. There was a cut of about 3.2% overall on expenses. Everything you see with the higher percentages is going to be your personnel costs in this budget.
Sure.
It's largely the same budget as last year.
Yeah, I mean, I get it, and there's going to be differences, but I'm just saying, it seems like we're pretty consistent.
Correct.
That was the thing, so, nope, I know I don't want to jump ahead. It doesn't look like anything skewed too far one way or the other, because I know, I mean, being county government, we're personnel heavy, so I understand completely what you're saying there, so thank you, Steve.
Comments or question on councils? Let's go to financial stabilization. Is there any questions or comments?
Yeah. This one is for Steve again. The GASB requirement is that this financial stabilization be between 5 and 15% of the general fund. Could you tell us?
I don't know the exact number as of today. We are approaching the 15% number. If you remember last year,
Yeah.
we did take interest money out of it to keep it in that ballpark. I believe that depending on where interest rates go, that could be a possibility sometime next year. I'm not 100% sure, but we'll
Okay, so
monitor that.
We're on the high end of the spectrum then.
We are,
Okay,
yes.
so it's certainly more than 5%. Thanks.
Anybody else? All right, let's move on to the executive, 32 and 10.
All right. If you have any questions about this budget, I'll answer them.
Anybody from council? Okay. Let's move on to the controller. That'd be 33 and 11. Oh, Mr. Parsons, you're in trouble. Just kidding.
I have not, I mean, it's right in front of you, it's pretty simple. I know it's already been mentioned to me that the decrease of 13% in personnel, we've lost two guys to retirement with over 60 years of service. So this year's budget took all their pay and all their benefits out. So that's the big thing. So other than that, there's really no change in the budget.
Do you have replacements?
Yeah, we've already, one's been hired and Tony's retiring the end of this year, so it'll be up to the new staff, the new controller.
Okay. Mr.
Is,
Alfredo?
the position that's yet to be filled, is that budgeted for 2024?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Question, Mr. Ron?
So, Ms. Parsons, you're heading for the door. So, I mean, you know, it's,
Really, because I didn't get home for the game. but go ahead.
you're going out and we're going to have a new controller, probably somebody in this room.
Well, yeah,
So
real good chance of that happening.
That's damn good
Yeah,
guess.
hey, I may have had a concussion, but I can tell. Okay. So you're in a good position. You've been there now a few months. And with the retirement, you're right. These people had been there for a long time. And so what I mean by the new controller is, all kidding aside, no matter how smart you are, you're going to come in and you've lost, as you say, 60 years of combined experience, and you can hire new people. Do you have any thoughts about or concerns for the controller's office in general? I mean, that,
The people that are there, they impress the hell out of me. You know, they do a good job. We do have one that's still gonna be with you. That's, I think Stacy's been there about 14 years, probably 10 years there. So she has the knowledge to get through that. And the younger ones are, they impress me, you know, they do a good job. They do a good job. They're professional with what they do. They ask all the right questions, I think, you know, from my little time there. So they do, you know, it's just,
so
gonna
from your
find out.
viewpoint,
Yeah.
you're confident that
yeah.
things will be
it's-
smooth for
yeah.
the new person coming in?
And Tony has, you know, he's told everybody there, and I know we've met with both Tara and John, that his phone's not gonna be off. He will help with anything that they gotta do. And, I don't think you're gonna see any problems whatsoever.
Thanks.
Okay?
Anyone else? All right, let's move on to the solicitor, 34 and 12. Good afternoon, young lady. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Trying to get better with age. I'm fooling myself, though. Questions for anybody?
Should put on my microphone and use the AV system that we currently have, right? Yeah, so how many individuals are employed in the solicitor's office currently?
8 attorneys and a paralegal and a secretary.
You said 8 attorneys?
Yes,
Okay.
including me.
Including,
I figured that.
okay. Are there any thoughts that any of them might retire, or is there anything in the future in 2024 that we should foresee?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think so, and not that I've heard. I think, we're good, and if one does go, we did replace a few this year, so
Okay. Thank
So
you.
your answer is you're adequately staffed?
we are.
Okay.
Could you repeat that again? What did you say there were? 8 attorneys,
Including
paralegal.
yourself.
one
Sec-
para, and one
secretary.
secretary?
Right,
Okay, so that adds up to 10.
right.
As I look on the personnel summary that Steve referenced on page 15, for solicitor, it says 2 full-time and 7 part-time. That adds up to 9. Can you explain the discrepancy?
Maybe I'm counting wrong. Let me count my solicitors.
Is there someone working there that shouldn't be?
Maybe. I think it is 7. I think I miscounted in my head. Yeah, 7 including me. I don't
So
know
there's
why I
7
said 8, yeah.
attorneys?
Yeah, so there are 9 of us.
So you
I think
count
maybe
yourself.
it's wishful thinking that I had, another one.
All right, thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Kevin?
So the two full-time positions are?
Wait a minute, hold on, I think I might take that back. I'm trying to count.
The two secretaries are full-time.
Yeah, 2 secretaries are full-time, all of the attorneys are part-time. Mike, Dave, Josh, Barr. No, I do have, there are 8 attorneys, including me, I was right.
That's just not indicated in the book then?
No, it's only at 9.
2 full-time, 7 part-time.
So you think you have 10 people, and according to the budget, you have 9.
Right.
Could you maybe figure out what the,
Any other questions while we wait for that answer?
Was it Steve that when we started working on the budget, I didn't have a secretary? Oh, that's
what
why.
it is. Oh, that's-
Okay, yeah.
sorry. That's what it is.
Josh, my one solicitor who deals with the human services aspect of it is covered under their budget apparently.
Whose budget?
Human services.
Human services.
Okay, all right.
I'm glad we figured
so
that one out.
does he report to Sue then, or to you?
He reports to me.
But he's paid by HR? Reports to her and paid by HR?
No, human services.
Human Services, okay.
It's probably an allowed expense to charge back, so that actually we're getting the state to fund his position.
Right.
It's, it's been done a lot of times in the past. Everybody's, if it's allowable, why not do it?
Okay. Steve, the gentleman you keep referring to back and forth, if he moved up front to one of the tables, might be easier for you to have to run back and forth if he's got questions. We're good. As long as he gets to the mic, we'll deal with it that way,
No,
okay?
that's good, thanks.
Any other questions for the solicitor? Okay, let's move on to Human Resources, 35 and 13. Is there any questions or comments on this particular budget from anybody
Human services.
on Human Services?
This is
Human resources.
Human Resources. I'm having a senior moment. John, go ahead.
So in his budget address, I believe Mr. McClure indicated that there would be an increase in deductibles and co-pays. And he was nice enough to blame county council for that decision that he made. But what specifically will change for the employees? Do you have the details?
Sorry, yes. This will be for career service. The
Okay.
2 plans are staying the same. We have a PPO and an HSA. The amount that the employees pay from their paycheck will increase by 1% for the PPO and by 0.5% for the HSA. The deductibles will be changing. The PPO deductibles are now $400 for single, $800 for family. That will be changing to $1,500 and $3,000.
Wow.
The HSA is currently $2,000 and $4,000, and that will go to $2,500 and $5,000. The county contribution to the employees' HSA plan will remain the same.
Okay. And
It is $1,250 for single and $2,500 for family.
Anybody else got a question?
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, you mentioned about the increase, but what what, it's going up 1%. What is the percentage then that it will be, the overall percentage per?
I believe it's 4% for single, this is for the PPO, 4.5
Yeah, that's
for
fine,
employee
PPO.
plus one, and 5% for family. And that will be, it's increasing 1% from those.
So
Those are
4
the
will go to
current
5,
ones.
5 will go to 6.
Correct.
Okay, all right, no, thank you, that's what I was curious about, thanks. I don't have any other question myself.
Lori?
So under salaries full-time, it's a 6% increase. Are you offering some step increases as well? Because some are 3%, some are 6%.
Some of those are incumbents who have since retired. There's somebody in the position now that is getting paid a lower salary who had less experience. Any upgrades, like I said before, are on page 17 in the book.
So what is, I don't see any upgrades in her
There
department.
are none for human resources.
Right, but there's a $45,000 increase in salary at 6%. So some are 3 and some are 6.
Well, so some are 3 and some are 6. There are
There's a
some,
6.
there are new people in those positions that might be getting paid less money. Some people might be opting into insurance and opting out. When you look at personnel at 6%, that also includes the healthcare increases as well.
It shouldn't, because the
No,
healthcare increases are under the fringes, are they not?
They are, but personnel is a fringe benefit cost, and that's where they reside.
We are fully staffed.
Yes.
We have every position filled in HR.
Sorry.
Anybody else has questions? Mr. Kuset?
Just one last comment. Last year, I proposed a student loan repayment incentive for recruitment and retention. There weren't enough votes here. I'm going to see if I can do that again. It was correctly pointed out last year that it was at the Supreme Court level, and that has been resolved, and student loans are being repaid, and I still believe that that would be a good way that we could attract employees, particularly in some departments where we've struggled to hire. So I'm gonna look to see where I can find the money, but I'll look to do that again. Thanks.
On the student loan question, just how long does someone have to be here to have their student loan paid off? How many years have they put in? Anybody know?
We don't currently have.
We haven't created it here at all?
No.
For the federal government, if someone works here a certain amount of time, do they forgive them?
It depends on what occupation you're in.
Is that 10 years?
There is a federal student loan program not having anything to do with the county that you can apply for, make set minimum payments, and that if you do public service, your student loans are forgiven. That is a federal program, not us.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? All right, let's move on to fiscal affairs. 36.
Here he comes.
Any questions on this?
Wow.
None? Go ahead, John.
I had one. Now, I'm looking at the blue book on page 15. I believe we're there. Again, one of the things that Mr. McClure's been pointing out is that there would be no county contribution for Graysdale. But if I look at the projection for this year, it's 1.2 million.
Negative.
Negative.
That's a negative.
No, he's talking about 2023 projection, correct?
Oh.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
this year, there's a Is that the fund balance that's indicated?
That's
in
the
that?
county cost. Graysdale does pay us, and money goes back and forth. If there was money put into Graysdale in any way, shape, or form, it would have to do with the ARP
Oh,
money,
the central
which resided
services?
into, yes.
Is that how the central services is broken out?
Yes, that's actually on page 15 at the top, I believe, because we do the cost savings plan.
Okay. And while we're on that page, COVID relief money, we're budgeting 13.8 million. Do we still have that much money sitting around from COVID relief?
So the money is all, the money is all resolutioned out, so to speak. The answer is yes, primarily because several of the bonuses that have been promised are paid over time. Several of the retention stuff, we don't know exactly, not retention, recruitment bonuses are paid out when we hire people. So that money kind of stays around. I know there are certain projects that are underway that haven't been paid for yet. We're waiting for invoices for some of those things. So that is the money that is currently left over, but is all committed, all but $1 million.
Okay, so, I know you've said this before, but the money has to be committed by the end of next year, not expended.
Correct. And what we're doing is there's a requirement, or there is a federal guideline that talks about revenue replacement for municipalities who are more fee-based acceptors of this money. The county benefits from it in this way. We can do longer-term programs that we take as quote-unquote revenue replacement. However, council has governed by resolution how that money should be spent, and we are following those resolutions.
Okay, so there's 13.8 million approximately that's been committed, there's $1 million that hasn't been committed.
Yes.
If we don't commit the $1 million, it goes, you're gonna just take it for revenue replacement.
Yeah, I mean, it will fall to the general fund in that regard. It's been it will be classified in a future report, if it hasn't done so already, as revenue replacement, so that the federal government doesn't come back to collect it.
Yeah, I don't want that to happen.
Right.
Do that before next year, correct?
The end of next year, but, so long as the money is committed, there is a place for obligation. So basically, you could classify the money as obligated and then expenditured. It's not very clear what an obligation is. The definition in the ARP guidelines is not clear. Revenue replacement is very clear.
Then just to follow up, if some of these, if it's a retention bonus, what if we don't spend the money?
Future
Again, it's
councils
just-
could, if
Okay.
future councils don't believe retention recruitment is working in that regard, I'll be glad to tell county council how much money is left, and we can discuss it at that point.
Okay.
Can we get an update, or that, not necessarily today, but where we are with that? Because I thought it was,
Those programs are built into Graysdale. I couldn't think of a better time to ask the question than at Graysdale's budget hearing, not to presume what council would do.
no, just as an update. And the other question is, some of that money was still part of the payouts to the small businesses, correct? Are there any that were not paid out or were?
No, there's,
picked up, or-
it's very, very minuscule amounts of money, if anything.
But this pretty much budgeted for programs that we already approved.
Correct.
Yes,
Steve, I know in each department, as you just said, so it's in our budget overall. I've had some questions about this federal money that came down, and I'm honest with people saying, frankly, it was a very unique situation. And actually, I told them to call your office if they have a specific question about it, because I wasn't confident in answering. But the million, the 13.8 million that's committed, that we still have, that hasn't been spent yet, but it is committed by resolution. Now, that's money we have that you're accounting for. It's not money that we'll get from them as we spend it.
Both tranches have been pulled down. We got it in 2 waves over 2 years. That's
Okay,
all
so
it-
that's
yeah.
that's how you're accounting for it over these budgets. And overall, we're looking at having committed by the end of next year, had to be committed by the end of 2024. But then there was no firm rule as of yet on when it would be realized as.
Well, there isn't a firm rule, but one firm rule that we know is, and that we are entitled to take revenue replacement to cover the entire remaining money. So once we report it that way, we are completely covered.
Yeah, and I think what I'm part of what I'm trying to get straight in my head is, as long as we have committed it, we're not in jeopardy of losing it. And even after we've committed it, we can we can move it. I mean, by resolution, let's say we've committed it, it's 2025, 2026, I don't know, and there's still some money there. And you and a council decides, you know what, this isn't, as you said, somebody may not vote or want to do this. We can move that money to something else, and we're probably not violating any federal.
No, it's actually, when we take it as revenue replacement, it turns into general fund dollars. And once that happens, it's ours to spend.
All right, I appreciate what the feds did, but I hope it was a unique situation.
I hope so too.
JP?
Mr. Barron, is that money collecting interest as we await to spend it?
I don't know exactly what accounts it is in interest-bearing accounts or whatever. I would assume that most of it is, yes, along with all of our other general fund money.
All right.
Mr. Barron, on page 17, as you look at the aging, you see that the aging supervisor, is that being created? Is that a new position? It says create.
For aging supervisor, you have to ask, I'm not prepared to answer that question yet, and I'm not really firm on all the particulars.
Okay.
Those positions on page 17 are listed by department. I would respectfully request you reserve for Ms. Wondolowski.
right.
She'll definitely be able to explain it to you, I promise.
All right.
He's talking page 17 in the white book,
Yeah,
Ms.
no, I got
Zirinsky.
Okay. Any other questions? Financial planning, we just finished that, did we not?
Can I ask a question?
Go ahead.
So for position changes in terms of the budget, what's going to happen? We did say that the Conservation District was going to stay in the 2024 budget, is that correct?
It is in the 2024 budget, and spoiler alert, Mr. Dertinger is here, and the Conservation District resides in his budget, and he will gladly be more than happy to talk about that with you when it's his time to talk about it.
When is his time? Okay.
Under administration.
Yeah, good deferment. My other question was, I'm just looking at the line item for county contribution transfer out for Juvenile Justice Center. And I'm looking at it from 2022 all the way down to 2024, and there's a significant increase. We've heard a lot about the Juvenile Justice Center in this room this year, and I mean, consistently, I thought we were saying that we didn't have enough personnel to have the number of beds or rooms taken.
So in the ideal situation at the Juvenile Justice Center, and in what the courts have proposed, and they'll be here at Courts and Corrections,
Okay.
the Juvenile Justice Center will cost the county $4.1 million this year, which is $350,800 more than it did this year.
Yeah, that's a significant amount.
Yeah, 9%.
What does that account for? Is that accounting mostly for salaries or?
You'd have to ask Mr. Green. He proposes that budget, and since it is the province of the courts, I would
Oh, you're not
prefer
gonna step
not
on
to
that. Yeah, I got you.
give you incorrect information.
That's smart. Yeah, good job. No, I'm just looking at it, and the trajectory just keeps going up year after year, so I'm just wondering
I will agree it is an expensive proposition, absolutely. The Juvenile Justice Center, it's expensive to run it. And it costs the county taxpayers that money, that's real dollars.
You are correct, according to this budget.
Yes.
I have heard from other counties, though, that they would love to be able to send their individuals here. And so I'm wondering, is that,
You can't answer that question.
you cannot
You can't
answer,
answer that
I do
question?
understand,
I
I
don't
do
wanna-
understand that you can't answer that, but I'm just trying to think about the numbers and how all that
I'm
happens.
trying to present the numbers here and not get into the policy and how I feel about the Juvenile Justice Center, so,
Oh, yeah,
it's-
don't tell us.
yeah, I just,
Render into the courts that.
you render under the courts that which is the courts.
Yeah, okay,
I'm sure
gotcha.
the people from the courts will answer all of our questions. Financial plan and control, 37 to 15.
I think
I thought that was just.
Are there any questions or comments from anybody on this?
No, I think we're good.
Good to go, all right, let's move on to revenue. Page 38 and 17. Mr. Cusack.
So you're creating a position in that department and
Yes.
upgrading another. Could you tell us why?
So this is the last step in the plan that I brought to you guys back in the beginning of this year. This is the last position to be created. This is the training position. One of the things we discovered in that department as we regrouped and created the director and the assistant director is that we needed somebody who was able to train and cross-train. We are going to be significantly upgrading our register system. And that person that we hire is going to be part of that process as we roll it out in the beginning of next year. And is going to go with Terry and some of the IT support staff to get all the training they need to be able to train the end user on the registers.
Then my other question on revenue for real property current, you are estimating or projecting for 2023, 96 million. But then your 2024 budget is 95,700,000. So you're projecting, your budget is less than what you're projecting.
So if you look at the real property prior year, that's still a little bit higher. And, if you look at the rollback taxes and the penalties, it is a little bit lower in the current year, but we anticipate that some of those may fall delinquent. We've seen higher delinquencies. And the truth of the matter is that a lot of people pay and enter into payment plans more so now than we've seen in the past due to the economy.
Really?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, we have a lot of people, and a lot of people forestalled sales of their property this year by entering into payment plans. And we follow the state law with that regard, and people we have not seen before in payment plans are entering payment plans. But they're maintaining their property and doing the best they can, which is good.
For county property tax?
Sometimes we collect for school district as well, but yes, for county property tax, you'd be surprised.
Can I, Steve, for the property tax, which, school districts do, and I know our tax level isn't that much. Is that customized per an individual? They'll come in and enter into something?
Well, so it's based on what they owe,
Yes.
and there's a whole bunch of state guidelines. The computer basically gives them the payment plan. There are some people who wait till the day of the sale and then come in and pay on the day of the sale. As the property is about to go on the block, they come in and pay their taxes. So, we have people that run it that close to the edge.
You don't get people anymore who come in with bags of dimes or something because they...
We did have somebody come in with
Mr. Dertinger's laughing.
over
because he knows
$20,000. I won't say
has
the exact
happened.
amount, but yes.
Serious?
In
In
coin?
coins?
No, not in coins and bills and such. People have come with coins. There was somebody who did try to pay in gold while I was the controller once.
Really?
Yes.
No chickens, but coins. There was a time, though, I knew.
Wow.
That's a lot of dollar bills.
Questions, comments for this? Anybody else?
No. Oh, interesting.
Disbursements, 39 and 19. Any questions or comments?
Hold on.
39 and 19.
Question.
Go ahead, Mr.
And I know a lot of what we look at will come up in different areas that we're going to go over, which may have somebody looking back towards you
That's okay.
at department head. But just on the pages we're looking at now, I know you've discussed about the healthcare going up and the reasons behind it.
Correct.
That's been brought up, okay. But I'm just curious, the vision and prescription and the retirement has gone down. What,
For disbursement.
56 and
for
39.
disbursements, on page I'm sorry, on page 19.
19?
I'm sorry,
I'll go
Steve.
back to 19. No, that's fine.
I mean, it's not significant in the sense of dollars. I guess it's just a general, I use these pages sometimes because they answer questions that I don't have to ask down the road, because then I can get more into programmatic
Are
stuff.
you mean you're on page 14?
I'm on, no,
Page 19.
page 19, Steve.
It shows the disbursement.
Oh, Blue Book, I'm sorry. Oh, you're just in disbursements. I got you.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm like the blue.
So for those departments, it might be specifically, so this one went down. It's specifically, I believe, did we cut a position there, Brandon? There's a position?
Oh, okay,
Vacant position
okay,
that is no longer on the books, yes.
Okay. So I see what you're saying. I'll have to, yeah, I guess I was just wondering if that was an in general type of situation where even though healthcare went up, that these segments for
No.
some reason would have gone down.
The other thing that might change it is if somebody opts out, if-
That's true.
Yes.
Okay, cool, no problem. Mileage reimbursements, has that changed at the state level? I know we are.
We don't, we get that in the beginning of the year from the federal government. We believe our travel budget is sufficient to cover any changes they make. It's a couple pennies either way.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Anybody else? Assessment salary, 40. Mr. Kusick?
What's our common level ratio right now?
I don't know what it is right now. I do know we are better than Lehigh County.
Should have known that was coming.
We just are, because of when they reassessed. The one thing we are doing in this department is we are looking at a program to verify homestead applications so that people don't have multiple homestead applications in the system. So we're working on that, but otherwise, it's status quo. I'll get you our common level ratio.
What's the latest on the pictometry? Is that up to date?
We just did a flyover. The images are being loaded up. We get new images every day that get loaded up for specific parcels and property. So we do have a new flyover, which is going to be particularly helpful.
Okay, so you're checking to see if someone has a shed or?
Well, so no, that is spot assessment, and we cannot do that. But what we can do is if we do a whole county-wide look at that, we did that while I was controller a bunch of years ago. That's not currently ongoing. We do have pictometry and use pictometry for taking those images to see what is on the property and then comparing it with the new permits. It's very helpful in that regard. So what is on the property and what is not, but we can't do spot assessment like that.
Insurance companies can.
No.
No?
No. They can pick things up for insurance purposes, but they cannot change the value of your property. That happens here exclusively.
What triggers an assessment?
If you pull a
Heard horror
permit,
stories, but-
if you pull a permit, so you put a new roof on, you have to pull a permit, and you bought your house and you didn't realize the garage wasn't on your assessment. So you pick up all the new items that are in there when you pull a permit and things like that. So,
Does that always happen, though?
no,
I don't think so.
no.
I would just note at the countywide level, what often happens is it's triggered by litigation.
It could be triggered by litigation too. So if an assessment, a new property or a property goes before the Revenue Appeals Board and an appeal is granted in the school district or some other municipality does not agree, they can sue to keep the assessment or bring the assessment office into court. That happens consistently. School districts mostly are the ones that engage in litigation because they have the larger amounts of dollars at stake with our assessment. Yeah.
So we used to get copies of the appeals. I haven't seen any lately, but what's been the activity this year of the appeals board?
It's hard to say. Mostly it's people who are shocked that when they put this on, other things get picked up. There are some attorneys that do mass appeals, meaning they solicit people to go out.
Sometimes big box stores, warehouses sometimes have.
Usually one of the things that appeals is school districts not thinking a value on a building has been put up high enough. That's usually what it is.
But are they meeting every month? How many properties have they been seeing? I don't know. Like I said, we used to
I
get,
can get you the list of like how many they've handled this year if you'd like to see. I don't know specifically what they all are, but I can get that for you.
okay, thank you.
Steve, just out of curiosity, assessment, we talked about all the development and everything, and the staffing remains the same, 20. Have they come and they do the budget asking like, or has there been a request for more people?
No, actually, we've had a lot of retirements there, which I have to say, the staff and the new group of assessors we have are wonderful. They're active in training. The two new supervisors, Julie Azalina and Julie Moss, are wonderful. They know their work. We lost a lot of experience when Cheryl died, God rest her soul. But we are maintaining in that office, and I'm proud of the team there. They do an excellent job.
So you feel, despite, and you're right, for what you mentioned, but, so you feel confident that coupled with all the development, that the numbers are sufficient to go out and do the job?
Absolutely, yes.
Anybody else? All right, let's move on to Geographic Information Systems, 42 and 22.
How many people request maps
All the time.
for planning and things like that, for development?
Most times they give us the plans, then we put it in the map and they request the map back. Lots of uses for GIS.
Oh, yeah, I do recall, especially for like carciology and things like that. But doesn't the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission have their own GIS person too?
They do.
So is that a redundancy to some
They do,
extent?
they do different levels
Or
of
do they do different
work.
work? Okay,
They do different levels of work. I wouldn't want the planning commission doing our 911 maps.
oh, okay, so that's specific,
Yes.
okay. Okay. So what other things would you want specifically the county to do that the Lehigh Valley Planning doesn't?
Yeah, go ahead.
An absolutely perfect example is the work that they're doing with the elections office in reapportioning or districting areas that we have. Forks, Palmer are just two that come right to mind that they have been working very closely with Mr. Comini. So that's something that's necessary for them to be here, and it's a very important element that they provide us.
What exactly are we doing in Forks and Palmer with the voting?
The Elections Commission, not we, are creating more districts in there. We have a lot of districts. And over the years, we've been noticing, obviously, when people move in, to some of these areas where you've seen a lot more development. We have a lot more people voting at single polling places. So in the past, we've had upwards of 2,600 people for one polling place. And then you come to Easton and there's 80 people voting at a polling place. So we're trying to more evenly distribute that so that you have an equal number of machines or an appropriate number of machines for the people, as well as the staff that are necessary to handle that volume of people so that you don't have a 2-hour line in one location and, walk-up voting in the others. And that's a large function of what the registrar and the GIS department do together.
That's really interesting, thank you.
Are we making sure that the folks that are in this inner city who only depend on their legs to get to voting aren't being moved around so they can't get to it?
There is no circumstance where anyone has been put out that they would have to walk further than they are presently. As an example,
Nothing,
8
in
East
other
and
words,
West.
just move, if 4 West and Easton had 2 machines, they only need 1, we just took 1 machine and moved that to somewhere else? Is that basically what we're doing?
We have no locations that only have 1 machine.
I was just using that.
Yeah, no, if a location had 3 machines and they only need 2, we move the machine. Yeah, that's not really what GIS does. That's a function of the elections.
We're just looking at where people have moved into, in other words, because Palmer Township has increased their volume,
Yes,
we've decided to make sure we had enough coverage so they're not waiting long.
exponentially. It's not just a little bit. It's been exponential. I mean, you guys know when you've made your way to the polling places, you'll see lines at those locations, and that's because they have over 2,000 voters at their per place. And in looking at a presidential election coming up, Registrar Committee has really been focused on making sure that we don't have problems or issues in those. And the GIS plays a very large role in that. Not something he'd be able to do without them.
There's a lot of development going on out in both Forks Township and Palmer, and Tatamy is blooming too. All right, any other questions on that?
I do, but it
Yes.
may come up later. Is that all we do with the GIS, or there's some talk about, and I can maybe get to it when we're at 911, Charles, so if you want to wait till then. The geothermal stuff, can we talk about that? Are we using any of that stuff?
Geothermal?
Like there's some tracking that they're talking about with the 911 systems to not just use 911 signals, but use geothermal signals to try to find people. Yeah, nothing.
No idea.
To be
We're just going, if
continued.
anything, we're going digital. We're
Well-
getting away from it.
Because where there's no, where you can't get a 911 signal, they're trying to find people. Yeah. Find your body signature.
A geothermal.
You mean equipment to find a body in rubble where they can't get a sales signal?
Your car's wrecked and you can't get a 911 signal, and they're talking about expanding 911 technology. I'm not hallucinating, you can wipe your head off.
Okay.
Damn, I'm getting,
Huh?
Todd's shaking his head no.
No, we don't have that, we don't need to.
we got dogs.
Good dogs.
They'll sniff them out. Okay. Wow. GIS. Okay. Any other questions on GIS? If not, we're going to move to procurement 4222. Questions on comments? So that's 42 and 24. 43 and 24, I'm sorry. Nobody? Works for me. Recorder and deed summaries, 44. Questions or comments? Mr. Kuzak?
You're looking at significantly less revenue. Is that because less sales?
Less recordings, less sales, yeah.
Have you seen a decrease over the last 12 months that would indicate that moving forward, that into next year, you're going to see fewer real estate transactions in the county?
Absolutely, especially with the talk of interest rate hikes. Yeah. Absolutely.
But if I can tail on Mr. Kusick, I noticed when I was going through these, because I said earlier, with development and the county, and I've actually been surprised by some of the numbers. We budgeted 100,000, well, no, I didn't say that. Basically, it had the projections, what we budgeted and the projections for this year, it's lower than was anticipated. So I think when you're looking at next year, you're sort of seeing the same thing at this point.
Yes.
Yeah, I was surprised by that when I saw something.
And we do have a new parcel alert system. We just sent out a press release on that. The executive put in place a parcel alert system so that people can know if an instrument is recorded against their property. You should definitely go online and check that out.
That's interesting.
Wait a second. Like a lien is recorded against your house?
Any document that's recorded in the deeds office, you may not know.
Yeah, like even a UCC loan or lien.
Correct.
Someone, I know that's a big thing. When people go solar, they don't know that there's a UCC lien on their house.
So that's a relatively painless process.
If you know your parcel number or your name, you could do it.
I don't, okay. Well, and, you know, I agree. I mean, and what Mr. Strinsky said, I mean, you could have an angry carpenter, like, you know, Mr. Lawton, he puts a mechanic or a lien on your property, and you don't know it till you go to sell it. I had a friend that, he had 2 liens on his property. He didn't know that he went to sell it.
That's why you got.
Mr. Galfredo,
Mr. Bannon, I see that, or Barron, you have increased personnel. Are you hiring people?
In the Recorder of Deeds office, the increase in personnel, I believe, does the Deeds office have an increase?
My question is alluding to the fact that if we're down 20% in fees, I'm assuming we're down 20% in work in that office?
Oh, no, there's tons of electronic documents that keep getting filed. So there's enough work to do. No staff have been adversely affected.
Thank you.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't follow your question there.
so we're not projecting an increase at all, not even low-income housing?
What do you mean?
You don't think anybody's going to buy any low-income housing? Isn't that our push to get low-income housing?
So there will be purchasing for that. There will be documents recorded for that. Has to be built first, and we have to identify people. So the real big dollars are when larger properties and buildings and businesses get sold.
Because I know there's some low-income housing in south side of Easton that's still looking to buy, so, okay. I was just curious, because they're there, people can't afford it, that's okay. All right. You answered my question on that. You're looking at bigger projects.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any other questions?
No, we're good.
Let's move over to Recorder of Deeds, 4525. Questions or comments? Council? No? All right. Deeds Recorder Improvements, 46 and 27.
Scanning.
Questions, comments?
I'm going to jump, if I may, the question.
Why you want to jump?
Go ahead. Ready to jump. Steve or Charles, I don't know which one. I know we've been recording things and archiving, and we were getting filled up, weren't we, at the place? And I just wondered, you had told us if you could tell us where we're at on that at this point.
A number of these projects have really started to bear fruit. We have stemmed that tide where we do have room. We were going to be filled at the archives by March of '21, and a lot of what we've done digitally, and a lot of specifically what Mr. Barron and his department, who generate most of the paper, things that were born digital have stayed digital, so we're not generating paper to just, a simpler circumstance would be, nobody's printing an email to put it in the archives now. Nobody's printing out a digital invoice to put it into the archives. It stays in our digital archives so that we don't have to send things over there. They've done really well with that. The prison has done really well with that. And we are moving forward now with 3 of the other departments that are criminal, civil, to be significantly more paperless. So that's doing very well.
Good, so I mean, there's still things to be digitalized, but it's.
Yes, no, there's still plenty to be
Yeah, yeah.
digitized. I would hasten to say that the most sound deadening room in this building is in civil's record room. I could yell as loud as I want and you wouldn't hear me. There's so much paper there. So we really do need to, continue this, and that's one of the things that we are finishing up with now with one of the projects that started when we got here to make that a reality.
Is the law cooperating in a way that I know at a time, Human Services would generate lots of paper. And at one time, I mean, the Wolf Building, there's a basement, you remember there's dirt and all that. You'd sort of go through it. It was like the catacombs in Rome, but there were just filing cabinets and boxes lined up against the wall. And then there was a time they said, well, you have to keep this paper. You're not allowed to do anything but what do you call it when you say paper? It's
With this, there are certain things that are still permanent retention, but if it is digitized and properly quality controlled and then stored in 3 locations, an archive copy, a permanent copy, and a accessible copy, we don't need the paper.
So today, as opposed to, let's say, 10 years ago, there's much more flexibility in our ability to digitalize documents.
Yes.
Yeah, and I know.
And remarkably so, we are ahead of the state in some of those instances. So there is some paper that we're still keeping to work with the state, but that time is coming short, and some of those papers will no longer be necessary. It also makes it much easier for everyone to get those. If you need a file, it's at your computer.
Yeah.
We don't need to bring it back from the archives building.
Well, that makes sense. I don't want to, I agree with, Charles, before you leave, Mr. Barron made a wise decision. I'm sure you'll say the same. I don't want you to speak for the courts, but I know in the past, they've been at times reluctant to change.
The courts have been working with us on e-filing for.
E-filing, okay.
For civil matters, and we have a representative for the courts on our committee while we're doing this.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Information Services, 47 and 28.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Cusack.
So a considerable amount of time was spent discussing this at the last council meeting. I'm looking, I guess it's page 28 on the blue book, and I see there's a increase in, let's see, administrative supplies and equipment. Now, I'm not sure, but I'd like to know if that is the line item that was discussed. It's up, what, 199%? So is that where the hardware is that was referenced that?
So there's a bunch of hardware in there that does roll up. I mean, we have there's copier leases in there, minor computer and software. That is not the contractual services, and that is not the maintained software. That's cameras. So that 83,200 is cameras, courtrooms, the whole kit and caboodle there. And we have another $395,500, not to mention when we talk about the capital budget, there are some larger IT capital purchases, I believe, in the back of the book that you'll see.
Okay, let me get right to the point then. Are the concerns that were expressed by Mr. Giovanni and some others, are they in the information services budget?
They were always anticipated to be in that budget.
Okay, can you
yes.
show us where so we can,
The 83,000, yes. And there are some pooled program operating costs of 346,000 because to run those cameras and to make them broadcast, you need software to do that.
okay, but as far as the fiscal side, the money to do what Mr. G and some other members of council feel that they need to operate next year, that is in this budget?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's what I wanted to know.
There you go. No amendment necessary.
Mr. Heckman?
Well, I got nothing.
I saw your hands working.
I just
Let me just ask a
did
quick
what I do.
You can, Mr. Zirinsky.
You know, I was thinking about all the archival stuff. How much does cloud space cost? Because I know how
So-
much it costs for like Apple or Google.
So we have a lot of server space here.
Okay.
Very limited amounts of our data live on the cloud or live in the cloud.
Is that for security purposes?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't want to talk too much about our network security here.
Oh, right.
For fear that people are listening, so.
Suffice to say, the
Suffice to
cloud
say, we
is not
have
something
security,
we
that-
want.
and let it go.
Yes.
And, yeah, and we have servers and they're not at
But
anybody's
that-
house.
But let it go.
Correct.
Got it.
No.
Yeah, okay, just checking.
Any other questions? I'm gonna let that go. County records and improvements, 4829. Questions, comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Steve. That, I don't know, the budgetary fund balance? I
Yes.
see is what, could you just?
So, money goes, so we have fines, fees, and charges of 87,000, and then another 300,000 came in from the Deeds Records Improvement Fund. So when Deeds money isn't spent over a number of years, it rolls into the County Records Improvement Fund via ordinance, and there it resides to be spent on other things. Now, truth be told, much of it goes back into Deeds. You know, the fraud equipment, the fraud thing we purchased with Landex is in there, and we're constantly buying, you know, scanners and digital equipment so that folks can see their documents online.
So that ties in with the, and I'm on page 29 in the blue book.
Yes,
that's right.
yes.
That ties in with the bottom where revenue went up 66, is that 66%? That number up on the budgetary fund balance ties in with that.
Correct, yeah, that 66% is not new money, it's just transferred from one department to another, yes.
Thank you.
Because actually, we're down $10,000 in overall fees and
Yeah.
fines and miscellaneous in that budget.
I'm gonna go back one, because all of a sudden the thought in my head, broadband money, are we gonna be getting any of that to do anything with?
What do you mean?
The federal government with the broadband money?
The broadband money is actually for increasing broadbands to homes. We have a broadband connection that comes in here. County government infrastructure is not included in that.
Okay.
It's more for residential
Residential.
people to bring broadband to them. And Ms. Smith can answer those broadband questions in DCED.
Okay.
With more
We'll move on then.
specifics.
Any other questions on that?
Nope.
Administrative summary, 49.
You don't need my garbage, I see.
No, that's just the way it is.
What, you swapping
I'll
garbage
take my
now?
cheat sheet, too.
Steve's
I don't want
thrilled.
your cheat sheet.
Hands
Mr.
off,
Dertinger.
Fall off.
Good evening, council.
Folks, administrative questions for Mr. Dertinger or comments? The salary is on 49. Summary. If my head's down, you have a question, just go ahead and ask, because I'm looking too. Go ahead, Mr. Goffredo.
Mr. Dertinger, the farmland preservation, I know we're gonna get into that on its own topic, but can you just summarize? I'm assuming you had money committed that didn't close on certain deals in the past year that you're intending on closing in 2024?
Yeah, that's always the case. When we when council provides the monies and we send it out to the state, we get the matching monies back. By the time we get started with the program, it's a matter of finding the properties that will be brought in on that year's grouping. But then we have to do all of our due diligence. The farmers have to do their work to get us the information. That usually takes us somewhere between a year to 2 years on, and in many cases, farms are owned by families, not just one person. So getting everyone rowing in the same direction takes some time, and that's, but on the other side, you would see this past year, the Farmland Preservation has actually had a banner year in as much as they've closed on, I believe it's 22 farms. So they've been moving very well.
Thank you.
I was going to ask that, but you already answered that question for me. I knew we had a great year. All right. Questions from anybody else on that part of it? All right, let's move to the administration on 5030. Administration, what the hell that means. Anybody have any questions, comments? None? Can we move on to Administrative Services 5132? Questions, comments, folks?
It's easy.
Farmland Preservation 52. Question, comments? Good over, give you a couple.
What's
Yes,
left
Ms.
on the Route 33? Not much, right?
Tiff?
Monies still continue to come in there, so we still make sure that the county gets every piece of what they're supposed to when sales are recorded,
So that stays open.
until all the properties there have sold or had their first sale.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Garfido.
There's a substantial increase in the grants. Is that one grant in particular, or is that a number of grants?
That is generally our match, and what we do. Northampton County is one of the top 10 farmland preservation counties, and as we get towards the end of the year, not only do we do well and have we figured the right amount of money to send to the state to get back the best return, but we also are the beneficiaries for counties that don't necessarily spend their money or can't, and we do get some of that money as well.
Anybody else? Farmland Preservation 5333. No significant change. Questions, comments?
Yeah,
Mr.
on this, this is new, this ACAP.
The ACAP.
Yeah. As I read the description, it struck me that some of the things that are included are work that's currently done by the conservation. Is there overlap with the conservation?
There always has been. Where this grant comes into is this grant is essentially an infrastructure grant, and we needed to have plans in place. And part of what happens, and one of the folks that work with farmland also does work with conservation, but he is trained and certified to deal with a lot of these conservation plans that farmers have to enter into to become part of our program. So because we have these conservation plans, we have an opportunity now to fund them with this money, this ACAP money, and that's what specifically they were looking to do. So rather than having the Conservation District work with the farmers to do this, our staff member who does this will be taking that over.
Question.
Go ahead.
Charles, and I, excuse me, we're doing the budget, and you just mentioned about how you do this, but I get the impression, because there is this overlap, and certainly with how we use our funds, the current situation with the Conservation District could make things more difficult next year?
No, a lot of we actually had this as part of a conversation on Tuesday.
Yeah.
That those programs that the county does with the Conservation District are generally the matching funds or the grants that the Conservation District goes to the state for. So we would still have that relationship working forward to do these same programs, whether it's with our Parks Department or with farmland.
So they're bound, they're bound, I mean, to do the same things with the county that they did before?
Yes, it's not, it's where they get, it's the reason why they get most of those grants. And even for that matter, when they're doing them with municipalities, as you're very well aware, it's often done with matching money that they've gotten from the county through DCED, so.
Okay.
One way or another, where the county is going to still be funding a lot of those opportunities, a lot of those grants that the Conservation District does in conjunction with everyone else. Them being independent wouldn't change that.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Zirinsky, I'm sorry.
I have a question about the Route 33
TIF.
TIF. I just want you to articulate why the projections for 2022 were so large, why in 2023 the projection was lower than the actual budget, and then this year you have it with the budgetary fund balance of 1,500. Can we anticipate more?
That is very driven by when we get the money in. So a sale has to happen for us to trigger that amount of money. So we don't know, we could go a whole year without getting a sale. But to be able to accept the money, we have to bring it as a budget amendment to county council anyway. So that's just, those are numbers in the budget of what we might anticipate getting for this year. But it's not guaranteed. It depends on the sale of land, and it has to be first sale.
Right, because last year, it looks like for that Route 33 projection was 8,400. Significantly lower than what actually was the fund balance.
That was one transaction.
So one transaction.
Yes.
How many transactions do you, like on average in a year? Does it, or it varies?
There is, yeah,
Because
there's
it
no
depends.
average.
Okay. Wow. Okay, so anticipate coming back for,
If there's something that moves there, yes.
okay. Thank you.
ACAP 5435. Since we've been back and forth.
Oh, sorry, I thought we were progressing.
Yeah, I keep trying to get past 33. I keep coming back.
Trying to get you past it, Charles. No questions
No,
on that?
that's all right.
33 TIF 5536. Any guy got any questions? Now it's time to ask, so I'm filling through my pages.
I have a question about
Go ahead.
the next one, the OSI Farmland Muni Partner Program. Lower Mount Bethel expenditures, in 2022, they were 50,407, and projected in 2023, 153,023, and for this year, there's nothing budgeted. Did they finish up their grant?
Yes,
Okay, and what specifically was that for again?
that would have been for acquisition of farmland.
Okay. But not one specific parcel.
It would have been for one specific parcel. I couldn't tell you which one it's
Okay.
for.
Any more questions on farmland? 33 TIF? Let's move on to OSI Farmland Preservation, 5637. Questions? No questions? OSI Farmland Municipal Partner Program, 57 and 38.
Let's see, we're at 0.
0 grants. Nobody has any questions on that? All right, we're going to move on to Conservation District Summary 58. Mr. Kusak.
So my understanding, not that I've been there, is if you're headed for a divorce, you should probably have separate legal counsel. So my question is there an allocation in here for legal counsel for the Conservation District? Because the sense that I get is they're probably going to need some advice as they move into independence, should they choose to follow that.
I think they've made it abundantly clear that they've been getting a lot of their legal advice from the DEP themselves. And no, we've not made an allotment for that, but that's certainly something as they make a transition, if they're looking for, that's a cost that they can pick up themselves. In the conversation we had, there were several circumstances for which I believe it was Berks County hired their own consultant as they left to take care of certain things. So the county continues to fund the items that we've always funded.
I understand that, but I'll raise the issue with my solicitor then. Given the split that is ongoing, would you advise that they have their own legal counsel as part of the divorce, for lack of a better term?
I represent council.
Yeah.
It would be inappropriate for me to advise the Conservation District.
Yeah. And in a divorce, I wouldn't want my ex paying for my lawyer. I'm just saying. They can get their own. And I think that's the way that works
very
now,
funny.
isn't it?
Yes, there are a number of things that they will need to be addressing, and I think we had a reasonably productive first meeting towards that and laid out some of the things that they would need to address, so.
Some of us are less
So you
than
don't
others.
believe that either a consultant or separate legal counsel is something that they should have in their budget for next year as they move through this process?
This budget was predicated on the fact that they would be moving forward as a county entity, and we had no intention of reaching this point. This point took place during their breach of the contract. So with that having triggered the circumstances, the county is not only not exercising the 90-day out, but we are focused on a 15-month exit ramp for them where we'll be assisting them in what they need. If they find that there are things that they need beyond what we have covered, in going independent, you pick those things up.
Yeah, I think they're gonna need separate legal counsel. That's just my thought.
Maybe the DEP will pick that up.
Mr. Heckman.
According to the executive, though, for this calendar year coming up, we're still covering the cost of the staff,
Yes,
as he said. So,
in following with the MOU, yes.
okay, but yeah, so.
We have them budgeted.
We have them budgeted. That's, I mean, I don't know when this thing may happen specifically, but he said he's going for the 15 months.
We're giving them the time that they need to
Yeah.
make sure they still have their feet underneath them.
I think, you know, and whatever you think of this split or don't think of this split, I have to agree, like what Mr. Kusik's saying, I would hope that they, for the good of the program, you know, regardless of where we come down on it,
Well, I would
that
just,
they should get some kind of counsel.
I would share with you that at the meeting we had, there were two people from county council, 2 people from the administration, 5 people from DEP, including the director of the PACD, as well as 3 of the Conservation Board members.
Good, okay.
Was that?
We didn't have enough for a basketball game.
Tough reference. Is that just happened at Tuesday's meeting?
Yes.
Mr. Gualfado?
Ms. Derringer, in expenditures by capital, in 2023, there was budgeted 143,000 and only 36,000 was spent.
Yes.
And I see that that is exactly what we budgeted for 2024. What was anticipated in the budget for 23 that wasn't spent?
What was anticipated in
The
2020?
23 budget?
That was not expended?
Yes.
That was, and we've talked about this a lot, that was the conference room. Public Works picked up most of the expense there. The county paid for that,
Gotcha, thank you.
as well as the new office that was built.
Well, we did a build-out.
We did a build-out for them, and for anyone who remembers the golden days of Executive Brackbill's MCI, Systems House, 911 Center, that was underneath the Graysdale building. That is now a conference room that we use for all. It was one of the things that we had agreed to assist them in getting. Previous to that, the second floor conference room was used by everyone from scouts through other organizations, and they felt that they needed a more secure space for their equipment, their records, and not having to clean it out every time someone used it the night before. So to give them their own conference room on the second floor, we joined with them to build a lower level conference room.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, just Phil's in the Atlanta or Todd went 1 up to 3.
What?
I just thought I'd give you an update.
He just gave us an update in the baseball game, 1-1.
Thank you.
What's wrong with that?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, dirt and gravel roads.
Yeah, just
Go
one,
ahead.
same with the Conservation District. I see we're upgrading the engineer position.
Yes.
Has that been filled, or what's the status of that?
No.
No, it has not been filled.
Why are we upgrading it? To raise the salary then, or?
Well, once again, we had initially agreed with them that we would look at the salary based on what others were, and we raised it by 3 grades to be competitive, still believing that they were going to be part of the county. We have had conversations that we would still assist in hiring at the newer rate, and the Conservation District would, as they have with all the other, in this circumstance, moreover, work towards selecting them, but be part of the interview process. And then if that person who would come forward would be told that this would be a 1 year with the county, and then it would be a independent agency from that point on. We don't want to hold them up because they did make a point that they believe that is a lot of revenue for them, so we wanted to make sure that was still available to
I
them.
agreed with them. I thought the salary was too low, so I'm glad to see it's been raised. So hopefully they get somebody to fill it.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, our last council meeting, that was proposed that we were going to increase that position and hire somebody before they decided they were going to go their own way, correct? At one of the meetings we had?
We did not, no.
We were going to fill that position.
We still have the position open.
If my memory serves correct, for next year, we were planning on filling that position. That's in the budget now.
Yes.
That has not changed.
No.
So what's it raised?
What's it raised to now?
What's the amount?
I don't remember what 3 grades is.
It's on page 17?
Is the amount there?
I'm not sure, it's probably not 3 grades. It's reflected in the.
Yeah, about to say, I can get you what the difference in the rate is.
Just ballpark. I'm not, but thank you for doing that.
Okay. Any other questions on that? If we don't, let's go to dirt and gravel road, 60 and 41.
I have a flashback every time we do this section of Ron Heckman talking about some skunk road.
Most paved roads started as dirt.
He's just showing how old he is.
Wrong with dirt roads.
I remember all blacktop.
Don't go up on my back.
Okay, Williams Township was the same way.
And I'm sorry, Councilman.
Yes, ma'am.
Hefner, it is an $11,000 increase.
That was quick.
Said we get the numbers.
Dirt and gravel, questions? All right, we're gonna move on to low volume road, 6142. Turn your mic on.
I know, sorry. So how much of all these grants then would go with them?
Yes.
We're discussing under?
Yes.
These are grants that their office uses.
How do we define low-volume road again? I forget.
Low volume dirt.
It's essentially, and I'm not trying to be facetious here, it's essentially the next step up from dirt and gravel roads. It is those roads that literally only you drive on. Nobody else other than the property owner drives on them. They're very infrequently used, and it's very difficult to get liquid fuels monies for roads that people don't use.
So I would say, like, if you go up the line, for example, $1 Million Highway would be a low-value road.
It could be. There is actually, that's probably just above, because that is a connector to other things.
It's not
So
dirt anymore.
It is not dirt anymore, but it is.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
know.
no, you're of the right mindset. I think that is just, gets too much traffic to be considered a low-volume road.
And I guess I'm asking.
But if you were to go to some of the roads off of $1 Million Highway, you would be talking about low-volume roads.
I guess my question is budgetary, not budgetary, but given the traffic increase that we've seen in Northampton County and roads, for example, feeder roads from housing and now with warehouses and want to put warehouses more further away from hubs in interstates, I would guess a lot of the low-volume roads, whatever that metric is going to be tougher. Now, I get it, for example, where Mr. Barron lives, where I live, I get that would be low-volume roads. No. Oh, no?
No, absolutely not. Yeah, no, those are high volume by comparison.
Oh.
I don't know.
Well, I feel they're high volume, but I thought they were low.
No, those would not be low volume.
Damn, you know where he lives?
Oh, yeah, I know where he lives. But anyway, okay, I was just
And these
curious.
are projects that are usually brought forward by the municipality, asking if when they do meet the criteria, they work with the municipality, and the Conservation District then helps them with the grant.
Okay, yeah, all right. I'm just trying to stay up to date on some of this stuff. Thank you.
Any other questions on low-volume roads? We're going to go to clean water, 6243. Questions or comments?
We love clean water.
We know you love clean water, Ms. Savinsky. I'm letting that go. Nobody? Okay. We're going to move on to watershed specialist, 6345. Question, comments? Mr. Dertinger, they're making your job very easy today.
That's pretty cut and dry.
Act 13, Conservation District, 6447.
Marcellus shale gas money. I still can't believe that we get so many impact fees from the Marcellus shale. I know. There's lots of people who are angry about that, who are actually impacted. Like,
No, that's me. It was a shh. We're very happy to get that money.
I know, I
We're all
know.
going. Yeah, it's like tabled? No, did I say that? No, okay.
Yep, educational,
Educational outreach, 6548.
that's always good too.
Question, comments? None? Weights and measures, 6649. Yeah.
See, now, as it goes, well, he is retired. John Keppel is retired. So his assistant has stepped up and is doing a fantastic job. And of the people who work for the county, they probably get out the most because they are in every gas station, every scale, every deli, they're everywhere. So they are at no, they get around plenty.
To get around, yeah.
Are they, did you get his replacement for the retired gentleman?
Yes, no, we are fully staffed there now. We have three people working that. And the vehicles that we have there now show that we are a professional staff.
That's very good. I'm sorry, Mr. Lott.
That's all right, he kind of answered the question.
That was the question. then, okay.
Charles, I remember early on in your tenure, we talked about possibly taking on, doing weights and measures
Yes.
regionally. Is that done, or is that still in the pot, so to speak?
That was at the request of the state ag who oversees this because it's not done regularly. Like here in Northampton County, we're very fortunate. Gas stations are addressed regularly and right away. When you look at those stickers, you'll notice that those stickers change every year. That doesn't happen in Lehigh County. That doesn't happen in other surrounding places. So they had asked us, since we were in the position that we were, to step up and to take over that delegation. We had some conversations. I would suggest, or I believe that the fellow who was in charge of that, or who was really pushing us to do that, has taken a little bit of a step back with a different governor, a different administration. And I don't want to say that there seems to be some talk of privatizing other elements of that, but we're no longer actively looking at those areas. And to that extent, our folks continue to chase after every scale and every valve, so we continue to increase the number of things that we're doing here in the county.
So that's not being pursued at the moment, but would Northampton County still be open to it if in fact
We are in a unique position where we would be able to do that work. We would probably have to get additional staff, but we would be able to do that work. And you know, one of the things that they do is generally pay for themselves, so.
Yep, thank you.
Didn't they take on extra work, though, or is that what didn't we talk a few years ago about them taking on significantly more work? Or no, that was in tandem with what he was discussing?
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Lott?
So this is not only gas stations, it's all volume measurements and scales that are used by that interact with the public? I mean, we don't do all scales for all businesses, but we do.
We do all scales for all businesses, including parking meters. Fresh Pet is an example that we do. They sell things by volume or by weight. So we make sure that their scales, their readers, if you're selling rope in Northampton County, your scale is checked by, your measuring devices are checked by us.
Any interaction with the public as far as selling a product that is a
Anything that measures weight or
volume?
volume or length, we check.
So you're talking about.
Even to that extent, we also, the staff there also checks to make sure that your bar scans match what is there. So they will go in and check those things to make sure that we have it is an absolute jewel that we have here to make sure that when you go in and when you scan something, generally, if you have a problem with it, they're the people you call to say, hey, I went there, I scanned this, they said it was 50 cents and I wound up paying $1. They'll go there and price check things because that is a measure.
That's,
So that means the Wegmans of the world and the ShopRites that,
Everyone, yeah.
that's outstanding that we're headed like that.
I can't, I of course would not say whom, but there was a complaint that came into them just last year there was just a too good to be true sale on ribeyes. And it was because they were basically charging you, for 14 ounces, for 10 ounces, I'm doing it wrong. They were charging you for 14 ounces, but only giving you 10. So they went in there and had all those stickers removed, had everything changed out.
Did people get their 4 ounces?
They got their money.
There you go.
Really?
Mr. Heckman?
well, yeah, I mean, that's interesting. That right now you have the barcodes. I mean, I'm thinking, yeah, we're talking about the thumb on the scale or taking the spring and putting a shot spring in there. So, but those days actually are somewhat gone, and now we're talking about
Well, with that
Scanning.
ribeye thing, they were adding weight when they made the barcodes print.
Okay, well, yeah,
So-
yeah, but I mean, you have to, now these guys have to go in and because of the electronic and scanning, I mean, wow, we're way past the thumb on the scale or,
They've got great equipment.
okay.
I had a question.
Yes, Mr. Cusack?
Propane or heating oil, do you check the trucks?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
And actually, one of the benefits of being in the former hangar is that we can use the former landing zone, which is all concrete, so if there is a spill or whatnot, it's easier to clean up. And we can do it centrally located without our guys chasing all over the county to the different companies. So we schedule and they come in.
Interesting.
Yeah, 3 people.
Wow.
Okay.
All right, election summary, 67.
68. Oh, 67?
Excuse me?
No,
67.
Election summary, 67 first.
Sometimes it doesn't have the white.
Questions and comments on 67 before we go to anything else?
Oh, I see.
Question,
On 67?
sure. Elections.
Elections.
So I'm doing the summary first on 67
All right.
before we go into conduct.
All right, I know, I'll wait till,
Okay. That's why I was checking you. Anybody else?
That's
All right, now we're going to move on to conduct of elections on 68 and 51.
question.
Sure.
Charles, we were having issues, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, some of the schools as locations, and there was pushback. I think it was Forks, I could be wrong.
East, Forks, was east.
The parents, or there was a thing about we don't want to use the school because we're still in session, but how are we doing with have we had any problems with locations in terms, because you mentioned being sure that the numbers are increasing, and even though we have mail-in ballots now, still, I wondered if we're having any problems with locations.
Those issues are very clearly defined in the law. It is shall, so we do vote in those locations. So those are generally not a problem. Schools, municipal properties, they are shall, we vote there.
So when that happened, had the law changed? Because,
No, it's just that they don't feel, very frequently, some people don't feel like the law applies to them. And the election solicitor speaks with them, and usually we come to some sort of accommodation. The school that you're talking about last year, we wound up using, it wasn't Forks, it was Saucon,
somebody,
Lower Saucon. Lower Saucon School District, Lower Saucon, Saucon Valley School District, Lower Saucon polling place. We went from a classroom to their conference room.
Okay.
That they do other things in. We find ways to accommodate them.
Yeah.
We had something like that with Nazareth, and they found a way to work with us for for a cafeteria area. So we've,
Lower Something 1 and Hellertown 3 are in the same place.
We moved them last year.
They're both at the high school, no?
No, Hellertown had asked, Lower Saucon High School had asked us to move them out, and we found another location for Hellertown 3. So we were able to move them to the Historical Society in Hellertown. Okay.
So, a question, you might want to get up, because he's going to ask you a question, I'm going to ask you.
yeah, I mean, you were Charles, but the thing would be, I guess along with this, business on the elections. I know the State House, there's a debate, they want to move our primary.
Yeah, sure.
And since that'll affect the budget next year, the primary as of now is what date again?
April 23rd.
And they want to move it to June?
May.
March.
March 19th.
And I,
March 19th.
okay, so, and I understand the sentiment, it's long been held, well, Pennsylvania's a big state, and we have our primaries so late, but that, I mean, there has to be a deadline on when they would make that decision, because you guys are gonna be the ones.
I deeply appreciate you saying that, but none of the other major changes that they've made, Act 77, Act 88, did they consider the deadline or the impact to the local registrars across the Commonwealth. So when that happens, we will do as we've done in the past and make sure that we're ready to hold an election.
Hypothetically, though, you got to, remember, Charles, we've talked about printing and everything. You guys have to have a drop dead date in your head that,
Oh, we most certainly do, but there's a lot of things on their side that are more problematic. I mean, to the larger extent that part of the permanent ballot mailing that we send out to everyone would be happening at the exact same time as they're saying, as it is statutory. So they would have to provide additional time, whereas the elections office is working diligently on that in January, they would need to start working on that in December, and sooner or later, it just gets to a point where they're just working on one election after another, and there's no break in between them.
I would hope, and I would say this to our CCAP people, that the state would be discussing this with local county elections.
CCAP has no purview. You need to call your House reps. They're the ones that are making that decision.
They can lean on.
They're advocating, but.
All right. No, I just was curious about that, because I've been reading about they want to do this, and, with the state, is it going to happen? Is it not going to happen?
I would certainly say that the elections office and I talk about this frequently.
I'm sure you do.
And it is absolutely a great source of anxiety.
Well, considering that, and I think, Charles, the reason I'm concerned is next year, as we all know, is a presidential.
Yes, it is.
And things haven't necessarily calmed down in the last few elections. So anytime there's any kind of glitch or concern, it's going to be magnified because it is a presidential year. So, okay, you've answered it for me. Thank you.
Are we anticipating any problem with the Fork School? Because I know the parents are up in arms again.
No.
All right. I remember there was a problem. All right, let's move on to election grant 6953. Questions, comments?
I think we asked this the last time you came to report at council, but we're good as far as equipment and things, right? Because that's what this money could be used for, but we have how many high-speed?
We have two of the 950s. We are moving along here.
Sorry.
We have two of the 950s, and we still have two of the 450s.
So do we need any?
I believe right now, in that respect, first off, we have all the equipment we need. That's not really our problem or even our challenge in this. Right now, for our tabulators are significantly faster than we can de-envelope ballots. So when you're looking at the speed in which they do, and even to that extent, I would also tell you that we have high-speed letter openers. But once you've done that, we have to take all of the envelopes out. It's not something that can be done mechanically, because we also have to inspect the internal ballot envelope when we do the first round of this. So the first round is to check the outer envelope as part of the pre-canvass. When we check although we've already made sure that these envelopes were getting to that room, it is statutorily required that the people inspect that ballot. They de-envelope the first one. We need to make sure that there is an inner envelope or a privacy envelope there, and we need to make sure that those envelopes do not have writing or any identifying marks on them, and you would be stunned at some of the things people put on their privacy envelope. It is beyond belief.
I mean, they leaving messages?
Yes, they absolutely do, or they electioneer and, they say things for or against a candidate, which nullifies their ballot. So, it's an astounding circumstance, but that also now needs to be de-enveloped and then unfolded, and the folds have to be taken out of them. So these ballots have been sitting for a month or so in that stage so that we can feed them into the machines. So at present, we can fit about 24 folks working in the cafeteria to do that. And in last year's election, that got us to a point of having all of our ballots out and read by 3 a.m. The standard now under Act 88 is that we're supposed to be done by 12.
But there's no increase on the front end, correct?
They haven't yet given us pre-canvassing days, which is what we're still hoping for. We still really need, because, that's in an election with 30 to 40,000 envelopes, or 30 to 40,000 ballots, 80,000 envelopes. Next year, we anticipate, if last presidential election's any indication, if it's just stayed flat, we would have about 80,000 envelopes, 80,000 ballots, 160,000 envelopes to work with. And there's just not enough room in the cafeteria to do that. We've been looking at where we could do this as well, but we don't have.
So back to the equipment, and how many, was it 5 years ago we bought it? Was it, I'm trying to think.
Less than that.
The new high-speed?
Well, we had to buy the equipment, was it 4 or 5 years ago? I don't remember.
5 years ago was the first round of the new
Right.
equipment, but we never bought the 850.
We didn't buy it?
No,
What, are we leasing it?
no.
Okay, explain.
Do we, I guess my question is, do we need upgrades? Do we need,
No, the equipment that we have now, the 950 is the latest and greatest. Rather than the other one that would the 850 that would just run fast all the time, this one will notice that there is a fold, that there is a slowing, and it will modulate itself so that it will not jam, it will not stop, it just keeps on scanning ballots, tabulating ballots.
but the actual ballot machines themselves and the tablets at the polls, we don't need to upgrade any of that, or?
We have upgraded, we upgrade those regularly. The software has been upgraded on the voting equipment. The ES&S Vote Excel machines have the latest security software.
So they're checked, you don't need anything, and so then you've just got this extra money. But I assume you build in upgrades as,
There are upgrades, and we have that as part of our licensing and maintenance fees that we pay each year.
till the next.
Yeah, to that extent, the only other piece of equipment that we have invested in is a ballot sorter, which the ballot presently, before this year, each time your ballot arrived, someone had to look at your ballot. They had to make sure that you had a signature, make sure you had a date, and then they would scan it into the system. They would stamp the outer envelope, the date that it arrived, and then all that information would make its way into the SURE system. Today, we have a machine that will do roughly, and I'm going to get this wrong, 18,000 ballots an hour. That it will do all of that in one shot. It verifies that there is a signature. Pennsylvania does not require signature match, which is good because my signature is nothing what it looked like when I first registered to vote.
Mine
I
either.
know.
None of us have.
I think I have
Any other
two.
questions on that?
Can that money be used for personnel then, or is it only
A
for?
lot of that money is intended to be used for personnel. So that money is used for judges of elections. It is used for people who are providing security or transporting our ballots. But there are very specific things that it can't be used for. It really can't be used for our staff during the year, only when they.
No, but I meant election staff, exactly what you're saying, staff at the polls.
It's actually one of the reasons why the cost for the election this year, although at a presidential election, did not go up. Because we found what we can spend that money on, And although we will not be able to spend all of the grant money this year, we do know what we can spend the money on, and we've taken that, withdrawn that from our general fund balance.
John, go ahead.
Just a comment about, you raised the pre-canvassing issue. CCAP has an outstanding bipartisan proposal.
Yep.
Unfortunately, it can't get through the state legislature, so, you know, it's, I don't know what we can do. Every time, even the clean bill is introduced, you get this amendment, that amendment, and by the time it gets through one or the other houses of the legislature, it's dead.
It gets killed.
So it's unfortunate, but there is a solid proposal that CCAP has out there. It's just unfortunate that our state legislature is unable to agree with us.
And let me just say, I just want to commend the election, the conduct. I mean, they've done a bang-up job over the last few years, considering everything that's been going on, and Northampton County has been right up there. And, you know,
We've been in
good
the
luck
top-
next year, especially if the state monkeys around with this changing of a date.
We have been in the top 3 reporting in each election since 20.
Oh, and by the way, the Phils are up 6-1 in the top of the
Thank you
fourth.
again.
I think it's
I was
important.
concerned, and I appreciate that.
I guess you're only as good as your last at bat, so far we're doing good. All right, we're gonna move on.
Mets aren't in this, so just-
We're going on. I'm not a Phillies fan. I'm a Phillies fan. Agriculture and Extension, 7054. Zirinsky left?
Yeah, shit, you go.
Okay, mark that. 70 and 54. Questions, comments? Pretty cut and dry. Nothing's changed. All right, we're going to move on to Emergency Management Service Summary, 71. Mr. Weaver, you need to mosey up in case there's any questions for you, please. I'll let him get up here. Mr. Goffredo would like to address you.
Mr. Weaver, how are you? All right. I see a pretty significant decrease in overtime wages and 20%, 22% increase in full-time and union full-time salaries. Is that, I'm assuming you hired,
Is your microphone on?
it's on. You hired a bunch of people and you don't have as much overtime, mandated overtime, I'm assuming?
Yeah, we always have to base the budget off of full staff when we do it. So right now, we do actually have 12 trainees, new hires in, that are going to start counting towards that staff. So we're hoping and anticipate that's going to help drop our overtime for next year.
So they're new hires, retention getting better?
New hires, retention is getting better. It's a slow climb. It's a slow climb in Pennsylvania and nationally to get those numbers back up.
Thank you.
What is your complement now of people?
We are 55 out of 64. Yeah.
So we're missing 9 still. Future plans to get those filled?
We're at a point where if we were to hire any faster, it would be difficult to train them or get them onto the floor. So we're trying to maintain the speed that we can with the on-the-job trainers or the other telecommunicators who help train the folks when they get on the floor.
Been on that floor, I understand. Questions, any other questions to that? Ms. Var, you have to.
See, I'm gonna correct my misspeak from before. It's geospatial, not geothermal. So, you knew that and you let me hang. It's okay. When you come for mental health care, I'm gonna do that. Now, the GIS and the geospatial stuff, are we doing anything with that? Don't,
They utilize it. Yeah. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Our CAD system and the state next generation CAD is all, 911 systems, all based off geospatial. Basically, when it gets an address or GPS, it plots where that call needs to be routed. So that's why GIS is very integrated in doing our addresses, any new address or corrections or new streets. They put it in there and our system processes it off of GIS. So if we get a dot, it matches closest address, that's what we dispatch, or if it falls within that zone. State's using the geospatial also with their next generation that they're moving through.
Okay.
Do we
Explain that
need,
GI spatial, what, is that a facial type of thing?
Basically, wherever your 911 call is and it's a dot on the map, that's where it determines where the 911 call gets routed. So if a dot pops up right now here in Easton, it knows it goes to Northampton County 911. Then that, once it's delivered to us, it matches up the address and says, okay, Easton Fire, it's at, whatever address it's happening. They used to do it, it's a flat file. They used to kind of just match address. Now they're doing it off of where actually the phone call physically comes from. They integrated GIS into 911. That's really what the geospatial is.
are there any plans to upgrade any of that equipment or even using more like photo technology? And not, I mean, again, I don't know what comes from the state to you or if it's up to us to make our own decisions about that.
We actually just went through a phone system upgrade last year, and that was to prepare us for the state's next generation, also to get us up to the next version. So we look at where the end of life or the equipment needs to be replaced, and we work that with state projects and also with our budget of what we need to replace.
So you feel like you're in good shape as far as?
We are way better than other counties, yes.
And again, we're not as remote, but there's some places in the county that I think would be, so.
I have a question.
Mr.
So I would guess landlines are fading
Yes.
as fast as those of boomers as we are.
Watch it.
But as far as identification with cell phones, which is pretty much, you're not having any issues with, I mean, are you incorporating the pings that come off, that you have access to where that phone?
The way it works now with cellular 911 is when you call 911, we usually get, most of the time, remember, we're at the mercy of carriers and cell coverage, we usually get within 10 meters of where you're at. And then we can actually actively watch the phone move. So, something interesting, if you see somebody calling an accident on 33 or 78, you'll actually see in what direction they're actually moving by watching the breadcrumbs of where they were and where they're going.
I have to believe you get a lot of those calls now.
We get a lot. Our wireless percentage is probably up at 70% of our calls.
Wow. And you're able to, though,
Yep.
haven't had any issues?
Most of the time, depending on carrier and coverage of that actual device itself. We can process all that data and information that comes in.
Thanks.
I'll make a comment as a person who recently had to use our 911 section because I was rear-ended and shoved up against Route 22's median. You guys got to me relatively quick, and I appreciate the fact that our system's working really well. Even though when you got me out, I was in a lot of pain, but thank you for getting there in a hurry. Any other questions? If not, we're going to move. Go ahead, Mr.
This is more of a financial question, maybe Steve can answer it. The county contribution, it is increasing in the enhanced 911 from approximately 1.6 to 2.2 million. That's a 42% increase in the county contribution. Is that a result of the failure to upgrade or make changes to the law to keep pace with the cost?
It's a number of things, but generally, we don't have that number until after we have an opportunity for the state to get their number together, and they're walking towards a reauthorization of where we get that funding from, so.
One of CCAP's priorities,
Yeah.
and that's why I was wondering if this is the issue. So you think it'll be less than that, or, I mean, that's a huge increase.
That number that was given to us is the number from the director of PEMA 911, and those are the numbers they gave us when we did the budget. And they kind of, I think, copped out a little bit and gave us last year's number, which didn't help us in determining that. However, if it is reauthorized at a higher rate, that number will have to get amended and changed. Because right now it is still at $1.65 per device.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, it's a big increase in the county contribution, so it does need to be reauthorized.
Any other questions? All right, we're going to move to the enhanced 911 7255. Questions, comments? None? Okay, we're going to move into enhanced 911 interconnectivity, 73 and 58. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, now for this one, the revenue estimate has increased from 493,000 to 1.37 million. To what do we attribute the increase in revenue for its Act 12 911 fee? Has it changed? Why has that one increased so much?
So your $1.65 to the state, 83% of it comes back to the county based off of a revenue formula. 15% of it, 2% the state keeps for themselves, 15% of it gets put into an interconnectivity fund. We apply for grants and projects for next generation 911 and readiness. So our phone equipment maintenance comes out of there 100%, our CAD maintenance and other various next generation projects that we're working on, whether jointly with other counties or ourselves. So like even some GIS edge mapping and making sure they match up to other counties, those projects. So they go off of applications that we submit to the state. And so we were able to leverage a little bit more this year in projects.
So this thought crossed my mind. If you have a phone that maybe has an area code that's not, 484 or a local one, does your bill go to that county? How does that work?
It actually goes to the state and it's distributed by revenue. The old way where we used to collect the tax
that's how we
ourselves,
used to do it, yeah.
that's when it used to go to the county, wherever that bill is. So now, all 911 fees at $1.65, whether cellular, VoIP, or landline, all go to the state and it's distributed via formula and also through 15%.
So it's based on your home address, even if you have a...
It all gets collected by the state and the state distributes it that way. Distribution is no longer done through the county. They take the pot and it's all distributed by formula.
They decide, John. Don't worry
They
about addresses.
decide.
You're worried about
It's
addresses.
a black box of money, yeah.
They put it in a big box. They
Anything that's collected in Pennsylvania goes to Pennsylvania, and then it gets distributed through the 61 911 centers that are in the
Yeah, I
state.
know, we used to do it, it was based on your phone
how it used
number.
to be
And
based.
yeah, so now that we just beg for what the state gives us. Okay, got it.
We like to say competitively look for grants.
It's a formula.
It's a formula, exactly.
Any other questions? Mike? All right, Hazmat Act 165. I'm sorry, Emergency Management, 7459. Excuse me, I got ahead of myself.
So you're creating a position there, could you tell us, training manager?
Yes,
Is
most
that
certainly.
paid for by a grant, or what's the?
We will be leveraging the money from the grants there. This is a position that is long overdue. Presently, the person in charge of training everyone is also the floor manager for the 911 center, so if he's in one place, he's not in the other. That's not always a problem because we have excellent supervisors who handle the regular, and if there's something he's needed for, can be brought in, as well as Todd and the other deputies there can deal with those issues. But what we've found is that with all of the training that we need to do, and with, I believe, the 16 that we have trained this year, having someone who's doing it full-time, who is also helping to train our trainers, as well as people who, with all of the other upgrades that we're doing, everyone else needs to be trained as well. There is a significant burden of training on one person who's also managing the floor,
Yeah,
so
I
we're.
understand if you're getting all these new people, there's certainly a
Yeah.
need for it. I guess my question then is, it's the way that it's listed in our book is it's a 911 training manager. So I guess my question is, why isn't that in with the 911, and why is it with emergency management?
911 falls under emergency management. That's why it's listed under there.
Okay.
Essentially where it's best for us to draw the money from.
CS 26. What's that salary going to be for CS 26?
26.
26.
Yeah. What's the dollars? Do you have any idea?
If I guess that.
Yeah, I was about to say, we have, I would tell you that we have about 8 different pay structures based on the different unions, career service and so on. It's a binder, so I wouldn't be fair to say. It's consistent with what the other deputies or the other emergency management folks are being paid.
But somebody knows we should be getting paid, right? If the
Yeah,
public.
no,
asks-
when we did it, we made the calculations based on the requirements of the job.
Thank you.
There you go.
All right. Any other questions, folks? If not, we'll move over to hazmat 7561.
Question.
Shoot.
I see that the hazardous chemical fee for '23, we projected 60,900, we budgeted 46, and we're projected it'll be 61,000 essentially. And I see now for '24, we're budgeting 58,000, a $12,000 increase. Is that based on the track record?
You're in the Blue Book?
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the Blue Book, yes, sir.
Thank you. All right.
61. I just wondered, had the fee gone up, or are we just doing more hazardous chemical?
The fee has stayed the same. There's just more facilities, more industries that may be adding chemicals and process, so it either requires them to be a planning facility or to report their chemical. So we take a pretty good evaluation of what we collected the previous year and try to make a pretty good educated guess as we're getting. But the industry may add another or 4 chemicals, which is going to increase the fee to collect.
That's a good
Yeah.
point. I hadn't thought, with all these warehouses and the other things like that, you're going to have an influx in areas with hazardous material. And we're able to cope with that with our staff and what you need or have.
Yes. And that's part of the collection of the fee, is to take care of training, response, and projects to help mitigate some of those hazardous material incidents.
Is that a set fee, or do we get a chance to, or is that something? the state
It's a set fee from the state.
Is it? I'm wondering, like, because when we joke with the state, but, we're like, we in the state are sort of like lords of the manor and the feudal, the serfs, but the fee, is it enough? Let's put it that, let's make it simple.
It's 75 per chemical, and it's 150 for a planning facility.
Has that changed over the years? Or is
No,
that-
it has not.
When, you have no idea when that was established? Okay. Right. No, this isn't, look, I've been around the state, having sat in that side and up here, the frustration one of a county official feels with the state at times can be overwhelming. I would think, given the change in our county now and what's going on with warehouses and that you are getting an amount you need from a fee standpoint. And I'm sure they're in Harrisburg lobbying to make sure that they feel the fee is fair. But I mean, you feel at this time you're able to do what you need to do with that fee?
Yeah, we do what we can with what the fee is, and I know the state, in talking to Pima, they're looking at probably reevaluating the Hazmat Act to bring it up to modern times. Just got to remember that fee then also gets lobbied from the industry to help
well,
keep
that's
it
what
in
I
check,
mean.
so.
I'm sure they're in Harrisburg. Well, next time one of the reps is here to hand out a check, I'll put a bug in their ear for you. All right, thanks. Okay, that's what they do.
We're going to hazmat migration assistance 76 and 63.
So it says that the grant under the, oh, wait, am I going ahead of myself, or can I do it together?
Which
The
are you
hazmat,
doing?
hazard mitigation assistance grant
Yes,
is anticipated to be done
yes.
in 2023. But is it similar to what we were discussing, that it has, you have to have expended all the money then? Or is it, does it
No.
have to be committed?
No, this,
by-
yeah, this rolls, and this is not one of those items.
And do you anticipate any future funding in that area, or is this?
Not at this time that we're focused on. This is a project that was undertaken, council passed this in a budget amendment so that we could keep it moving. Council was actually very responsive to that, so that we're in the spot we are now, that we don't need to look at it for next year.
Very good. So it's a plus and we're ahead. All right, we're going to move to Task Force Equipment 77, 40, and 64.
Yeah,
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, on the task force, there's a couple of them that stuck out at me. I'm looking at the blue book on 65.
Okay.
One of them, in next year, it was zero until.
Hold on, two different things.
Oh, the task force?
Task Force and Northeast
okay.
Terrorism Task
Northeast is
Force.
different.
Oh,
They're two
okay.
different- they're two
I'm on
different items.
Northeast, okay, I'll wait.
That's a
That's
different
why-
that's a different ball, different bag.
Yes.
Okay,
I didn't catch what you were going with.
all right, no, nothing on the.
So then, can you articulate the difference?
Yes, one of them is for the 911 emergency management, and the other one is for a separate state agency.
So the task force equipment is the first one.
Yes.
Yeah, nothing there.
Mr. Weaver educated me real well with the two when I was there. Any other questions? Okay, now we'll move to Northeast Pennsylvania Task Force. 7865.
Yeah, on those, there were a couple of them that stuck out for me. One was that next year, there's a $27,000 line item for election security. And it's not there for 22 or 23. What's involved with that?
The Northeast Terrorism Task Force is grant-funded through the federal government. We serve as a pass-through and a host. They do the work that they do based on their requirements and their objectives. We have no role in any of that.
So as part of this task force, though, there's, a grant for election security. I think
Yes.
that'd be interesting to know what exactly is involved. And the other one is domestic extremism. What does that entail?
And again, they're a federal agency using one of our locations. One of the nice things about having them is it provides us the previous page. When we were, during COVID, Northampton County as the host, we wound up storing a lot of the PPE when no one else could get it. It was being funneled through Northampton County, and as an example, they wound up getting us a forklift to make sure that we could help distribute all this equipment, but it wound up being housed here. The Northeast Terrorism Task Force is really, from my standpoint, a agency for which I sign a lot of checks for using their money.
Okay. No, those two stuck out. I
I have to tell you that thankfully, there are a lot of conversations taking place at just about every level as we come into another presidential election as to what security and what elements need to be addressed. And those things range in areas that you would not necessarily usually think about. Their folks are thinking about those things and addressing or evaluating those, which is about as far as I probably should go in public.
Charles, the training, if I may, the training has gone up significantly. I mean, the amount itself isn't that big, but.
Or Northeast Terrorism Task Force?
Yeah, yes.
Yep,
yes.
yeah, okay.
And I'm guessing that's for our staff, but also
No,
for at large.
Yeah, they cover a 15-county area, and they host trainings for different folks, ranging from their emergency management, their 911, different police departments. They cover a wide variety of training.
So this piece is really our piece for our area, all the individuals who would be involved, let's say.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this?
Who represents, there's no staff, right, that they represent?
There are I think there's 3 now. There are 3 or 4 staff members who liaise with the 15 counties,
So part of the funding is the,
pays their salaries.
and where are they based? Not here, right?
Huh?
They're not based here, right?
They're not based here.
Northampton County.
Louismore Park.
Is that a security?
No.
Short, sweet, to the point. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Derringer.
No, you're not done with me yet.
I thought I was.
Nice try. Nice try.
Authorities, boards, commissions, by county ventures.
Yes.
Lanta is here. Mr. Owens?
Well, to that extent, you also have, which, you know, you,
Oh, yeah, I got to go back to 94.
revenue appeals is also in this group here.
What is?
Revenue appeals, the fiscal can't actually hold their own appeals. So that,
We have that?
in the blue book, if you're looking on page 66, you'll see assessment for appeals fees, salaries.
Hold on. You said 60.
In the blue book, 66.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Okay. Nothing in the white book? Okay, go ahead, Charles.
No, and in the white book, it indicates what are, and, you know, to that extent, that is, the 3 that really reside here are the revenue appeals, the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, and Lanta. We have looked at the requests that were made, and for all the agencies that have their specific needs, we addressed what we believed was most appropriate for Northampton County. Specifically to Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, we looked at what their request was, and moreover, the value it was for Northampton County, and this is Lehigh Valley Planning Commission at the values that we have put in this budget. This still winds up being a good deal for Northampton County. Essentially, anything north of that really starts to put us in a position where it becomes necessary for us to think about the value or the benefit of going off on our own. And with that, if there are no other questions.
They're asking for 605,000. I mean, yeah.
Well, we get to ask questions of the question is the increase on Lanta, if we're open to that discussion at this time.
We haven't gotten to that yet.
Well, the Lanta Board is based on a formula with the state. Mr. O'Neill is here, so he can speak to that more specifically, but Northampton County and Lehigh County renegotiated the charter 2 years ago, and we are now a percentage-based, so we are paying for the percentage of services and fees that we provide to Lanta, and Lehigh County pays their percentage. I want to say that our percentage is 43%? 43%. See? Thank God you showed up. 43%, and
You can come up.
there are some capital improvements that they are making, that is to replace some older buses with more efficient buses. But with that, Owen does a much better job of describing Lanta than I ever will.
Welcome, Owen.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if did you want me to go over it, or do you want to just, if you have questions?
Lay it on us.
Okay, all right. Well, just a quick overview of kind of things that are going on. Atlanta are still kind of recovering from COVID and coming out. We're actually doing pretty well in that regard. We're about 95% of pre-COVID ridership now and continuing to grow on the bus system. This past fiscal year, ridership was 35% higher than the year before. So we are seeing good recovery trend, and hopefully we'll continue continue growing beyond that and not only going to pre-COVID, but continuing to go past that. And where ridership is continuing to recover on the paratransit system as well. It's kind of lagging the bus system a little bit. We're about 65%, 65-70% of where we were pre-COVID. Still a lot of things like a lot of programs that used to be 5-day a week and now they're 3-day a week and things like that. So that's still kind of affecting the usage on that system. But we are seeing kind of a steady return to normal on that system as well. And as Charles had mentioned, basically the kind of the two pieces of the budget request, basically all the county contribution to Atlanta's budget is in the form of matches to state and federal grants. And as we talked a lot about formulas, everything is formula-based. And the biggest piece of our budget request is the required match to our state operating assistance. We get a state operating assistance grant from PennDOT every year, which requires a certain match from a non-state source. In our situation has always been the two counties split that required match. As Charles mentioned a few years ago, we went to, I guess this will be our third year of doing the percentage split based on, we look at how much service is in each county, and so each county puts in that amount. It also has to. The requirement is actually a 15% match, but if the counties or the local sources are not at 15%, they have to at least give 5% more than what they did the previous year. Not a full 5%. You would get to 15% in 3 years. It's 5% on a dollar figure, 5% more than what you did last year, whichever is less. Whether 15% match or 5% more than you did last year. We've always been, the two counties together have always been about 6 to 7% match. So they generally, that's why it always kind of goes up that 5% over what was given last year. And then the other piece of it is the capital side, which is primarily funded through Federal Transit Administration grants. And then we get some state capital grants from PennDOT. So the federal grant, like when we buy a bus, when we buy a new bus, and we buy buses to replace old ones, right? And that's been our big priority over the last few years, is to make sure that as buses reach their useful life of 12 years, that we're trying to replace them, get them off the street. The technology is much better, much cleaner, much more efficient. So we try to make sure that we're using our dollars in that way that's our primary priority, is to get rid of the old buses and replace them. When we buy a bus, we use federal dollars. Federal grants can be used to pay for 80% of that cost. Then PennDOT gives us grants capital grants that pay for another 19 2/3 of that, and then the counties have to make up the 1/3 of 1%. And again, that is then split between Northampton and Lehigh counties, based still on that same percentage. Split. The operating piece of it went up 5% from last year. The capital grant tends to go up and down a little bit based on what we're doing. This year we're buying 13 buses. Last year we weren't buying any buses because none were coming up on their replacement cycle. So that's why you see some increase on the capital match request as well. And just in terms of, just in general, what we're trying to do, our biggest challenge continues to be growth in both ends of the county, or both ends of the region, the 33 corridor, the 100 corridor on the other side, all the growth in the hospitals, the warehouses, and trying to keep up with that. We still kind of basically a fairly finite amount of resources to try to keep up with all that. I would say we're kind of always trying to rearrange the patio furniture to accommodate a bigger and bigger party every year, but it's the same patio furniture. But that's kind of continues to be our biggest challenge, is trying to, the region is growing very quickly, a lot of land development, and just trying to keep up with all that. And that's kind of what we're always trying to do. Mm-hmm.
I was waiting for him to finish before I let you ask him a question. You want to take questions?
Yes, yep.
Mr. Ekman?
Well, I see, our contribution went up 60 I assume that's in what you mentioned with the grants you get at the state or federal level, that our percentage has increased and you need that money.
Right, the 5%, and I think about 28,000 of that is an increase in the capital grant. The capital request was a lot lower last year because we weren't buying any buses. So so about half of that increase is actually the capital match, and then half of it is the 5%, the
Gotcha.
required 5% bump. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes sense. Thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a question. I'm just looking at your website. How are you with hiring personnel? Do you have enough bus drivers?
For the big buses, we do. We're pretty good. We tend to be the top of the food chain for people who have their CDLs and are looking at, a lot of people who have been driving a school bus or things like that. They eventually come to us. It's better wages, better benefits, and on the paratransit side, we still struggle. We have a contractor that runs that. They're about 90% of where they need to be, and it's kind of a constant churn. Because it's a difficult job and it's a difficult thing to keep people in, and so it is. It's better than, certainly better than it was a year ago, but still a challenge.
Because of the pay, or?
Well, no, I mean, the pay has gone up significantly over the last couple of years.
You brought a new company to.
We brought a new contractor in. One of the things we looked at specifically was what were they going to pay the drivers? What were the benefits going to be? And so they had a much more competitive package, and they've since bumped that up and done retention bonuses, hiring bonuses, all that kind of stuff. It's just, a lot of it is just demographics. I think there's just not enough people out there. And then when they do come in, it's a tough job. It's with paratransit driving. It's you have to have a certain personality. You have to have a lot of patience, so it's not a good fit for a lot of people. So you bring people in, you train them, then they go out for a couple of weeks, and then they're like, "No, this isn't for me." And so you're constantly trying to hire and keep up. So hopefully it'll continue to improve, but.
Yeah, I see some other support staff positions. Mechanics, is that an issue, hiring?
Mechanics, we've been able to, because we don't hire people in as mechanics, we hire them in as what we call utility people who fuel the buses and clean the buses at night, and then we train them up over years to become mechanics. So we've been able to have a good pipeline in that regard. So, but I know other companies that have large vehicle fleets really struggle to find enough mechanics. But everything, accountants, customer service reps, everything is hard to find right now. So, yeah.
Well, thanks.
As far as you have to?
So, the 43%, are there any increase in routes or service to our side of the?
They're actually, we increased services in general across the board, but we also increased them in Lehigh County, so the percentage stayed the same. But the actual amount of service that's on the street is actually higher than it was. This year we enhanced some routes, but also had to do the same in certain spots in Lehigh County too. So even though there's more service in Northampton County right now, the percentage splits stay the same because kind of all boats rise with the tide kind of thing.
Are you looking at any new ventures or any alternative services? I mean, maybe more shuttle service or?
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's an interesting industry.
Right, yeah.
We're the guys to provide the service.
Yeah. We have been looking at more ways to use what we call our flex service, which is we use our paratransit vans and our flexible services to meet the demand in places where there's demand, but maybe not enough for like a bus. But we need something where it's general public, where it's not an eligibility-based type of thing, where there's general public demand, but not enough to dedicate a bus there or on a fixed schedule. The other thing too, we've been looking at. We always look at, is there the potential to use kind of smaller vehicles, different types of vehicles on some of our routes that have lower demand. Some of those things, it's tough because the buses, even we have some 35-foot buses and 40-foot buses. When we're in the city and kind of doing certain types of services, tends to be easier to use the bus because they're low floor and they have ramps rather than lifts. So especially for people who have mobility issues, it's easier for them to get on those vehicles. So we do try to use those as much as we can, but we are always kind of looking at, is there ways to use different types of vehicles to meet the demand?
And are you servicing all the expansion to all the healthcare facilities? Because
Yeah, we're trying,
so-
Yeah, and that's one of our challenges is, with the two health networks, obviously their business model seems to be decentralization and have an office on every corner kind of a thing. And so always trying to keep up with them, and when they're having new facilities, new offices opening up, and trying to make sure we're serving them appropriately.
Mr. President, maybe they could come and give us a full presentation.
Yeah, it would be good to hear what.
At one point, yeah, because you've done some changes. I've seen it from a paratransit point of view.
Yeah.
That some of our nursing homes, your buses are coming down and actually loading folks with wheelchairs on, which is a plus, because
Yeah,
they get a chance to go out. Now, my question to you is, are we done with fuel buses, and are we just running propane at this point?
Right now, well, we have 85 total buses. We have 65 compressed natural gas and 20 hybrids. They're diesel hybrid electrics. We're kind of always looking at what are the zero or near zero options. The buses we buy now all have near zero emission engines. They're 90% cleaner than the buses that we would have been buying 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's certainly, they're a lot cleaner. Still, the battery electric buses, when we run the numbers, they still don't really work very well for us, just from the cost and the range that they can go from an operational standpoint. But we're always kind of looking at what is the potential for that next generation of propulsion. But right now, the compressed natural gases are working really well for us, and they all have the near zero emission engines.
And you guys are taking a lot of warehouse people now. You're running different shifts.
Yeah.
Folks at these warehouses.
Yeah, and that's a big challenge too, because a lot of them, they have really strange shifts. They have 2 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday morning, and some of the things we've been able to do some partnerships with some of the employers where they cover some of our costs to provide certain targeted trips. So that's helped to allow us to put trips where we might not have been able to without the resources. But yeah, that's something that's always in there. Adding shifts, changing shifts, new employers coming in, new facilities coming in. It's kind of a constant thing that we're trying to stay on top of.
Are you guys still doing the availabilities when it snows to get employees to the colleges and the students to the colleges? Are you still doing that program?
We do, yeah, we have, we now.
You might want to explain that a little bit more, because I'm aware of it because I was at Lafayette.
Right, yeah, we have four of the colleges regionally. We have Lafayette, Lehigh, Muhlenberg, and Cedar Crest are all on what we call our UPass program, where the students, and depending on which college, some include the faculty and staff as well, some just include students and staff. But they get onto our bus and they can swipe their college ID in our fare box, and then they can ride for free, and then we bill the applicable college for each trip.
I want to give you kudos on that because I was well aware how it worked out for Lafayette.
Yeah, and that program's been growing. We started a few of the colleges before COVID, and it was growing steadily, and then obviously the kids weren't even there, so it fell through the floor. But then since they've been back, it's been year on year growing really steadily and nicely. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Lanta? Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot. Okay.
LVPC, Matt Assad.
Been back there for a while.
Thanks, Ellen.
Glad to see you're still awake.
I'm glad to see we're awake.
Yeah.
How are you?
Well, hopefully we'll keep your attention here. My name is Steve Glickman. I'm the chair of the Lehigh Valley Planning Commission for the last almost 2 years. My term's just about up. Dr. Chris Amato couldn't be here. He's out at a farmland preservation meeting. Becky Bradley is down in Philly at the Federal Reserve looking to do a cooperative plan on housing. So we're out there at night like you. I'd like to introduce Tracy Oskovich, our our Director of Administration, and Matt Assad, of course, our Managing Editor. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss our budget with you, and we appreciate certainly your support.
Okay.
Turn it over to Matt, and I'll chip in when I need to.
So, thank you. So you may have heard during some of these hearings that the housing sales are down, some of the revenues are down. We are not seeing that on the development front. We are seeing more development reviews than ever. In fact, if I direct you to the very colorful thing with you guys on it, I direct you to a couple of numbers. The 408 reviews already, this is through 9 months. That's a big number already. So by the end of the year, most of these numbers are going to be among the most we've seen since 2008. Last year was really big too, so they're going to be on pace with last year. You know, I could direct you to the 172 development reviews and then 105 stormwater management. That is going to end up being the most since, I think, 2007. And then the even bigger number, the 45 municipal ordinances, maps, and plans. We've been directing municipalities to update their ordinances, update their zoning, because it gives them more ammunition to manage the development that is coming to their doorsteps. And they're doing that more than ever. This number is going to be double what they did last year. So they're sort of racing to the table with the things we're asking them to do. And if you sort of turn it over, you will notice that those numbers are vastly bigger than the numbers in Lehigh County. We were really just saving paper, but it kind of becomes convenient here. You can just look at it. The numbers in Northampton County are much bigger than and we don't look at the county line. We go where we are needed, wherever our resource is needed. It just so happens that this year, there's a lot more in Northampton County. And then if you go down there, I sort of direct you to the non-development number, where you see industrial and warehouse. That is a big number. And that's just a 9-month number. So non-residential in general is 8.5 million. It was that big last year. It's going to be that big again this year. It's been big. And if you turn it over, that's triple of what happened in Lehigh County.
May I have a
So-
point of clarification, Matt? Go ahead.
Sure.
Just so I understand when you're explaining these. When you say quasi-public, there's a lot of places now where the guys are putting apartments and then first floor, they're putting businesses.
That's not quasi-public.
What would you do?
Quasi-public is like a hospital or a school.
What
So
would
it's
I-
more institutional.
Okay, how would you look at what I just mentioned? Like apartments and retail? What would that come under?
So apartments would probably go under housing, and then the retail would go under retail. Like that would be that would probably be separate square footage in the retail
Oh, okay, so
category.
it's one building, but you would separate it?
I think they would separate it,
All
yeah.
right, I was
yeah.
just curious, because that's a big thing now.
So if you look at that industrial and warehouse number, big number, it's been big for several years. When you check it next month, it's going to be double. Because the first week of this year, the first week of this month, so this is January through September. The first week of this month, we had something happen that's never happened. We got people working in our office for 40 years and they've never seen it happen. We got 18 actually, one came in today. 18 land uses of regional significance came in just a span of 10 days.
How do you define regionally significant?
So there is a whole criteria in Future LV. For like a warehouse, it's more than 250,000. For, I think, for housing, I think it's got to be more than 300 units, I think. But it's those type of designations. And it is a designation that puts it under greater scrutiny. And it generally is something where its impacts go beyond the impacts of that municipality. They have a regional significance. So we tend to get 2 or 3 of those a month. And we got 6 months worth in a week. And we also got in, you see these municipal ordinances, maps, and plans. Those are pretty extensive. Sometimes we'll get this in and we'll have to review the whole thing. They've rewritten their code. We got 7 of those in just so far this month. And we usually get 1 or 2 of those. So some kind of deluge just hit us that we have not seen before. But all of these numbers are going to jump. So, again, we don't look at that, but I took the time to look at it. The LURs, the land uses of regional significance, there's 18 of them. Turned out that 14 are in Northampton County. So that's why your number there is going to go way up. I mean, it's not going to stay at 7 million, 7.1. That's going to be, I didn't add it up, but it's probably going to double in a week.
That's warehouses, industrial, that you're talking about then?
It's mostly warehouses, industrial. There's some manufacturing in there. Yeah, and there's a couple of other, like, in there is Lehigh Valley Town Center. That's the one that's the Topgolf. So that was one of them. And then there's an Ultra Poly building, which is a manufacturing maintenance building. It's not warehouse, but it is a lot of warehouses. So
Can you, I'm really, so what you're saying is that you anticipate that the number that we see here for warehouse, which is already 6.5 million,
It's going
could be double?
Could be 13.
if we updated it to today, it would probably be double. It might be worse than double, actually.
So we're looking at an additional 13 million square feet of warehousing just this year? That is.
Well, that's what they're proposing. I mean, what ends up getting to the finish line, it usually gets to the finish line, but some of them, not all of them are having an easy time of it. So, but as I said, we just go where we're needed, and it turns out this year we're needed more in Northampton County, and I think that'll be the case next year as well. So I just note that to tell you that.
What you're telling us is that municipalities are accepting this additional 7 million?
Well, they're going to review them, yeah. We're going to write, Becky's going to write a column on it. It'll have a little more detail, but yes. So municipalities are doing these. Now, again, we're sort of having them update their codes and update their plans and update their regulations so they can better handle it. In some cases, they can make sure it doesn't go where they don't want. So they're sort of, you have a situation here where maybe you have developers racing to the table and them racing. And we don't really have a definitive explanation of why this just happened, but it is still happening, and it's a lot of work. And I'm very happy not to be a planner these 2 weeks, because I don't know how they're making it, how they're getting them all done, but they always do. They're amazing. And so in general, there is a lot of work, and I'm going to turn it over to Tracy, and she can talk about budget. I just wanted to let you know that it is still very busy.
That's scary.
Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. Also using some of our time, a lot of our time, is our help with multi-municipal agreements and multi-municipal plans. And those also put our municipalities in a better position to handle the development that's coming at them. So we have 37 communities, and there's ongoing maintenance of all of those. It just turns out 25 of those 37 are in Northampton County. We go where we're asked and where we're needed. So there's a lot of services being provided in Northampton County. Now I'll turn it over to Tracy, sorry.
No, thank you. Thank you, Matt, for teeing that up. So you just heard the volume has exponentially increased, and that's been an ongoing trend. We expected that to not be the case this year, but it continues to be. The complexity of those reviews also has increased, meaning it takes more time to do them. So it's not just about the number of reviews, it's how long it takes to review them so that we can provide thoughtful comment to prepare municipalities and provide them, expertise in how to handle that, how to handle what's coming at them. So we did put in a budget request to you. In front of you, you have a request document. There's a lot of information about what we do, who we are, what's our ongoing work plan, what we propose next year. I direct you to page 20. We did, per our bylaws, request the same amount from both counties, which was $700,000 as a base amount. That is 18.87% of our total budget, which you'll see on page 21. If you stay at 605,000, that'll drop to 16.74 and reallocate the whole chart there on the percentage. If you go to page 22, just so we can go over what that actually means. So the base county planning request is $632,231. As you know, we're also an MPO, and there's a required match per all the formulas you guys have heard all evening. And that required match is $67,769. That gets us to the base request of $700,000. We also have other additional projects that we are teeing up and working on. And that is the specific project contracts and additional grant match requests. We have that in at $32,399. And on page 23, you can see what that $32,399 is for. Currently, we are in the middle of and halfway through our Eastern Pennsylvania Regional Freight Infrastructure Plan. We did receive that grant money from PennDOT, and we did receive the commitment from the 4 other MPOs adjacent to us and north of us that are participating, and so we need that $10,732 match from you guys. We also, I just found this out, I was on the phone with Ernie from Pima yesterday. We did get that Pennsylvania Emergency Management Grant for the regional watershed assessment that we are proposing to do, and we're trying to get all of the money together necessary to kick that project off, but we did get the $100,000. That also has a required match, of which your portion is $16,667. And then we just put it on here, oh, sorry, back up to the water one. We also expect to hear from DEP on that $40,000 request for that water project as well, because we do have a request into them for some funding towards that, and that also has a required match of $5,000. The climate pollution reduction grant, the regional priority climate action plan that we're working on, we did go fundraise from that to EPA, and that does not have a required match, but it is of value to you because it is going to support the county and provide a priority climate action plan with implementation items, as well as a regional climate action plan following the priority one. And then there's a lot of money in the federal government designated to implement those actions that are identified in that planning process. I just want to note, Lehigh County has committed $700,000 in base funding, and they also have already paid their $32,399 in match funds for our grants in 2023.
Let me
Sure, do
add,
you have anything additional?
before we have some questions, let me mention one more thing. These 17-plus projects and reviews that occur every month, or that occur this month in particular, the reviews have a clock. Whether it's a half dozen, whether it's 3, whether it's 17, we have 30 days to review them. There is no delay, or they are deemed approved. So we have to go through each of those, whichever, no matter how much rain rains, we have to catch the drops. And we have to produce the comments and submit them to the townships or the cities, wherever they're proposed, so that they can rely on our approved, commission-approved letters for the projects. So our staff is obviously taxed, and it impacts other programs as well. Obviously, you can only lift so much in 1 month's time. So the project load has increased. Your proposed portion of our budget has decreased. So of course, you're getting substantial value. I certainly agree with the executive regarding that. But we still have to do the work to support our program, the projects that come your way, and Lehigh County certainly has no problem in coming up with our request. We would appreciate any consideration with regard to that, because in this particular month, most of the projects are from your county, as well as the reviews that are not project-based, but are zoning amendments and other items that we do for you specifically. Thank you.
Okay, questions?
If I may, you want 90, you feel we should be funding you by $95,000 more than what you were.
Correct, and in the decades prior, you were always at parity with each other, Lehigh and Northampton County.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
That's your question? You done?
I just wanted to be clear that that's.
Anybody else before I ask the question?
Just a comment, I am still stunned at this warehouse number. It is unbelievable. I've been sitting here a long time seeing these numbers. That 13 million square, and you're saying it could be more than that. I mean, I can't believe it.
We've been discovered.
All right.
I know we've had other industries here, but this is crazy. And you talk about a climate action plan? I mean, it's almost laughable when you're talking about all these additional warehouses and all the diesel and truck traffic
Yeah.
that's gonna generate. Climate action plan, we need a
So-
truck action. plan.
So that's the Eastern PA Freight Plan. So, and that's what we also need a match for, in addition to the 95 that Mr. Heckman also mentioned. But I will say, the priority climate action plan, the goal is to do what we are calling transportation decarbonization. And so we're going to address some of that truck concern that you brought up with that planning effort.
All right. All this is nice, pretty, beautiful, and I'm stunned by the amount of footage you're talking. But there's one thing here missing that I don't see, and I ain't budging off the money we're gonna give you until we see what the salaries are. You guys are increasing your salaries, and we gotta pick up the tab on that, and we gotta be able to explain to the taxpayers why we're gonna give you an extra $90,000. Well, I wanna know where it's going. So I expect someone to come back here to us, explain to us exactly where the money is going, who's getting what salary, because this is taxpayers' money. We want to know where the hell it's spent at. And I'm on my way out the door in the end of December, but before I go, I want to make sure we know exactly where the hell the money's going. So I appreciate what you came and showed us today, but it's not showing me where a dime is going in salaries. And that is more important to me and some members of council and all this 13,000 square foot you got going. We got to explain if we're going to give you, but my mind's blown by that. But we're still, it's a lot of money.
Sure, and so to answer what I can today of your question, we are professional staff, so as you
I'm
can
not
imagine,
disputing
majority
that.
of our budget
Yeah.
is going to salaries and into our, the fringe benefits and anything associated with, with
Yeah,
staffing.
I agree, but I'm not trying to bite your head off. I just got to be able to explain to the people who put in my butt in office how I'm going to agree to pay that much more without looking at where exactly it's going. And this is not coming from the exec, this is coming from me and the 8 other people who have got to pass this budget. He sends it to us, we got to pass it. And I can guarantee you, he's going to be telling us, hit the brakes, fellas, and we're going to, because that's a huge increase. So get somebody here to explain to us exactly where the money's going. I thank you for being here.
We'll be happy to meet with you and discuss that.
Oh, yeah, we're going to make sure you're here to explain to us before I leave. And Lori has a question for you.
What match do municipalities give?
Municipalities are not required to be members of our organization.
Any other questions? You good? Anybody else? Since we lost a few?
I have a question. Has the state, do they up whatever they send you?
So our transportation funding, yes, we do get increases. Generally, it's biannually when we do our contracting with them. And it's about 5% each contract, each contract year, which is captured in that MPO match number that you
Our
see.
increase for you guys has been 5% since 2019.
Get out of here.
Yeah, I was doing the math here, and I was,
Yeah,
It's like 1% a year.
okay, thank you.
Thank you for coming. We have a couple other things to go over before we leave. You don't have to necessarily stick around. Mr. McClure, I would like you to stick around for a second if you could. We're going to move on to general government allocation costs of 94 and 85. No, we're not done.
Close.
We're getting there. 94 and 85. Oh, I even got things tagged out, so I didn't miss it. Mr. Barron, the floor is yours, my friend.
This is simply what it costs the general fund to pay for all the special revenue funds, i.e. HR for human services, for example. Payroll for human services, conservation district, those types of organizations.
This money's all contracted because these folks are all union and all.
It's not union dues and contracts. It's what, so I put an HR person, so Mary Lou is the director of HR.
Right.
A portion of her salary and the work that her staff does goes to supporting hiring of human service workers that are paid for by human service funds. We're entitled to reimbursement for those.
Just like we do with some of our caseworkers and things like that.
Correct. Payroll
Basically
is,
fall in the
payroll the
same
same
line?
thing, yes.
Okay, all right. All right, I'm getting smarter as I'm getting older. Questions? None? Okay, Mr. McClure.
7-2 Phillies.
Yes. 8-2.
Oh, is it 8?
What inning?
Hey, look, after the other night where they blew it, I'm watching.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McClure,
Yes, sir.
maybe I stepped on a few toes, but am I correct that we need to make sure we know where the money's going before we, because we're projecting one thing and they're asking for a huge increase on top of that?
I think
budget?
I think you asked last year for the salary information, which you never received. So yes, you're entitled to it before you make your decisions. I mean, you've been asking for several years. Have you ever received it?
Or,
Men's a mess.
getting it before I leave.
Good luck.
And if I don't, I'll leave it up to the next commissioners to jump on it, but I'm not gonna let off until we find out what's going on. We just won't approve the budget for that on my end.
Well, approve the 605, please.
Yes, not the increase. That's already
All right.
in what you put in for it, and I don't have a problem with it because it's followed the same pattern for the last 3 years.
Okay.
Okay, question for him.
So based on this, did you get a copy of what they gave us?
I've seen various iterations of it, yeah.
So with some of the things that they said are new developments or the matches,
13
do you
million.
believe that that's encompassed in your $605,000?
Yes. I do.
Because it does look like finally we're getting more work than
Yes.
we ever did, but,
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, you know.
but do you have any inkling to ask for an increase for any of these things? Because, and then what happens if we don't give the match, or
Not
is
this
it
year.
perceived?
Not this year. I'm very comfortable with our proposal as we've made it.
Are there any consequences to us if we don't agree to more?
No,
You're solid in your belief on that?
yeah.
Okay. Any other, can I ask for, that we close this?
Yeah, we don't need a motion to adjourn, do we?
I don't think we do, we just fade away.
We're done.
Just say we out.
We just fade away.
We're done. Thank you.
Hey, after the Phillies folded the other night, I
What
mean,
inning are we in?
dramatically.
It's bottom,
I don't want to leave them on.
I have it.
It'd have been rude of me to turn